Chapter 41. I don't know if you're this powerful in other places. Mei Er's pair of watery eyes looked at Yang Kai meaningfully as she said these explicit words. Such blatant teasing, as long as it was a man, he wouldn't be able to remain indifferent. What's more, Mei Er's appearance wasn't bad, and her figure wasn't bad either. A series of gulping sounds came from all directions. Sassafras and the others were already weak, and after being provoked like this, their blood rushed to their heads, and several of them fainted on the spot. Yang Kai also felt a wave of lust rush up, and his Adam's apple couldn't help but move. His breathing became heavy, and the hand holding Mei Er's neck involuntarily increased its strength. Mei Er panted, and her body twisted a few times. She rebuked Yang Kai with a glare. You're still not letting go. As she spoke, she stretched out her hand and gently pried open Kai Yang's hand. She didn't know if it was intentional or not, but she actually placed Kai Yang's hand on her round and full chest. An astonishing elasticity and warmth came from her palm, and Yang Kai clearly felt a small protrusion on his palm. This kind of stimulation caused the blood flowing from his wound to accelerate. Yang Kai's face was a bit red. He never would have thought that this woman would be so wanton. How old was she? Sure enough, one's ambition wasn't determined by age, and one's flirtatiousness depended on the present. Seeing Yang Kai's embarrassed state, Mei Er giggled and said, "What are you doing?" Yang Kai looked at Mei Er below him, and felt like a dog biting a porcupine. Speaking of which, in the entire battle, Mei Er really didn't make a move against the High Heaven Pavilion disciples, so Yang Kai naturally couldn't hit her. The reason why he wanted to teach her a lesson was because this woman had been fanning the flames in the middle. But being teased like this, Yang Kai was a bit angry. He was a man, so how could he be played in the palm of her hand? After thinking for a while, Yang Kai suddenly squeezed the hand that was covering Mei Er's chest. Mei Er's expression changed as she moaned. In an instant, her face turned red as she glared angrily at Yang Kai. She didn't expect him to not know how to be protective of the fairer sex. Amidst the laughter, Yang Kai stood up and looked at Mei Er. "You can leave." Mei Er's expression froze as she stared blankly at Yang Kai. She did not expect that her successful attempt at seduction would not work. Who knew how many people were staring at this body of his, wanting to have a taste of it? Normally, there would be countless young people fighting over this matter, but today, it was rare for them to be interested in a man and take the initiative to entice him, but they were actually ignored. Was he still a man? After staring blankly for a moment, Mei Er suddenly smiled and stood up gracefully. She looked deeply at Yang Kai, lightly bit her red lips, and whispered into Yang Kai's ear. "You're very interesting." After saying that, she giggled and turned to leave. Her slim waist and full buttocks were extremely flirtatious. Sassafras and the others were stunned, their eyes filled with envy. They did not expect Yang Kai to reject such a good thing. They all asked themselves, if Mei Er had said those words to them, what would they have done? They might have done it. No, they definitely would have done it. Why would they reject such a good thing that fell from the sky? Anyway, there was no loss. After Mei Er left, everyone turned their heads to look at Kai Yang. Each and every one of them was filled with resentment and shame. Sigh, many sighs sounded. Yang Kai crouched down and tore some cloth from the unconscious disciples of Storm House. He then wrapped it around his injured hand. Looking at Sassafras and the others, these junior brothers all looked embarrassed. "Do you still have the strength to walk?" Yang Kai asked. Everyone nodded slightly. "Then let's go." The group of people returned to High Heaven Pavilion with bruises all over their faces and scattered to find medicine to heal their wounds. Although there was a fight today, it was still a fight between the younger generation. This kind of thing often happened between the three major forces, so there was nothing to be surprised about. As long as it was not an important person who died, the elders of each force would turn a blind eye to it and never ask about it. Only with competition can there be progress. Every force's elders hoped to use this kind of method to temper their disciples. Yang Kai returned to the small wooden hut. He originally wanted to take out the remaining half bottle of blood-clotting cream, but after thinking about it, he decided against it. The most serious injury today was the wound on his hand that was pierced by the long sword. Other than that, there was nothing serious. However, although the wound on his hand looked frightening, it was not as serious as he had imagined. When he had grabbed Qing Xiaofeng's sword, Yang Kai had avoided his bones and meridians. Although there was a hole in his hand, it was only a flesh wound. It was not much different from the last time he had fought the flowerback spider. Last time he had recovered in 3 or 4 days, so this time should be the same. Moreover, in such a short time, his injuries had healed a lot, and his physical strength had also recovered a bit. Yang Kai carefully felt for a moment and found that not only did the warmth from the unyielding golden skeleton have healing properties, but the true Yang Yuan Qi in his body also had healing properties. With the help of the two, his injuries healed quickly. After finding out that the true Yang Yuan Qi also had healing properties, Yang Kai hurriedly ran to the coiling dragon stream to absorb the Yang Qi. Although he did not use the last drop of Yang liquid in today's battle, the true Yang Yuan Qi in his body had been greatly consumed and urgently needed to be replenished. As he was absorbing the Yang Qi, Yang Kai suddenly felt a surge in his body. The Yang Qi from the outside world had uncontrollably drilled into his body. In just an instant, it was equivalent to 1 or 2 days of normal effort. Not only was the true Yang Yuan Qi completely replenished today, it was even denser. His meridians also seemed to have become tougher and wider. Tempered body stage 8 stage. Yang Kai came back to his senses, his face filled with joy. Breaking through to tempered body stage 8 stage so quickly was not within Yang Kai's expectations. He had originally estimated that he would need at least 7 or 8 days to break through. For something like this to happen, it seemed that it had something to do with his all-out battle today. Fighting with others really did have its benefits. With joy in his heart, Yang Kai put even more effort into cultivating the true Yang tactics. After breaking through to the next stage, the speed at which he absorbed the Yang Qi had clearly increased. Every aspect of his body had improved. At night, Yang Kai returned to the wooden house to rest. After all, he was injured today, so it was not suitable for him to stay up all night to cultivate. For the next few days, besides eating and sleeping, Yang Kai cultivated at the coiling dragon stream. On the other hand, Sassafras and the others did not appear. They were probably all recuperating. A few days later, early in the morning, Yang Kai was sweeping the floor when he saw Sassafras leading Li Yuntian and the others over. The people who had participated in the battle that day were all present, and all of them valiantly followed behind Sassafras. Although they had been recuperating for several days, this group of people still looked somewhat miserable. Their eyes were bruised, and the corners of their mouths were swollen. It was very comical. Yang Kai glanced at them and couldn't help but laugh. "Junior brother, is your skin itching again?" Chapter 42. Sassafras blushed and glared at Yang Kai. He then stood in front of him and stared at him coldly. However, there was a complicated look in his eyes. There was admiration, unwillingness, annoyance, and relief. "Give it to me." Sassafras suddenly stretched out his hand. Li Yuntian quickly passed 2 wine jars to Sassafras. Sassafras took the wine jars, kept one for himself, and gave the other to Yang Kai. Without saying a word, he opened the jars and started drinking. A group of Sky Tower members who were passing by were all dumbfounded. They stared blankly at Sassafras. They didn't know what was wrong with him today. He was drinking wine so early in the morning. Smiling faintly, Kai Yang also reached out and tore open the seal, taking a big gulp. Good. Li Yuntian shouted from behind Sassafras. Good. The others also cheered. So, two sounds broke through the air. Yang Kai and Sassafras wine jars broke at the same time, and the wine spilled all over their clothes. A dark hall disciple came out from the side and coldly said to Yang Kai and Sassafras, drinking in the daytime and ruining the reputation of the sect. Since this is your first offense, each of you will be deducted 5 contribution points. If there is a next time, you will be severely punished. Deduct, deduct, deduct. Yang Kai didn't care. If it was a month ago, he would have been heartbroken, but now, he didn't care. Even Kai Yang didn't care, so why would Su Mu, the second-generation ancestor, care? He had a powerful backer, and contribution points were worthless to him. Zhao Hu, help Brother Yang sweep the floor, Sassafras waved at Zhao Hu. Okay, Zhao Hu, who was defeated by Yang Kai in 3 moves a few days ago, quickly stepped forward and took the broom from Yang Kai. I don't think that's a good idea. Yang Kai glanced at the Dark Hall disciple. The Dark Hall disciple coldly snorted and turned to leave. Come, let's go to your hut. I have something to tell you, Sassafras said. Beside the small house, Sassafras and Yang Kai were half squatting on the ground. In front of them was the small pond. Behind them, a group of people were busy repairing the hole in the roof for Yang Kai. From the looks of it, Sassafras and his men had completely let go of their grudges with Yang Kai after what happened that day. Not only that, they even wanted to befriend him. Why did you save us? Sassafras asked after a moment of silence. Why? Yang Kai frowned. You call me brother, so I naturally have to act like a brother. That's probably the reason. Of course, the most important thing was that the Sassafras were not evil by nature. Sassafras turned his head and looked deeply into Yang Kai's eyes. Really? Yang Kai smiled. What do you think? Sassafras was silent. He felt bad. After a while, he said, Fine, you treat us as junior brothers, so we'll treat you as a brother. Junior brother was blind in the past. I'm sorry, brother. I didn't care in the first place, Yang Kai said. The two of them looked at each other and laughed out loud. This was probably what the saying, a smile wipes away all enmity. After letting go of their grudges, Sassafras was no longer so reserved and awkward. He truly treated Yang Kai as a brother. After the two of them talked about some nonsense, Sassafras suddenly licked his lips. His face turned red as he stammered, Brother, let me ask you something. What is it? Yang Kai looked at him strangely. That day. Cough. Did you touch? Sassafras did not dare to look Yang Kai in the eye. What did I touch? Yang Kai did not understand. That one. Which one? Sassafras was depressed. He gritted his teeth and said, Who may, as he spoke, he even grabbed his own chest. It was a very touching scene. Yang Kai could not help but laugh. Young people were indeed very curious. Sassafras was shameless to ask such a thing. Didn't you see it? I didn't see it clearly. Did I really touch it? Sassafras's mouth was wide open. So what if I did? Yang Kai grinned. She put my hand on it. I was just teaching her a lesson. Gulp. Sassafras swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His eyes were full of expectation. How did it feel? Junior brother, you haven't tried it before. Yang Kai looked at Sassafras in confusion. He wondered if this rich kid was still a pure little virgin. Sassafras shook his head like a rattledrum. He asked suspiciously, "Brother, have you tried it before?" Yang Kai showed a thoughtful expression. A beautiful face flashed in front of him. He sighed faintly. Sigh, the past is not worth mentioning. Su Mu was stunned for a moment. Hearing the implication, he couldn't help curling his lips and saying, "You're bragging. Senior fellow apprentice, you joined the sect 3 years ago. During these 3 years, you didn't make friends with anyone. How could you have such an opportunity? If possible, it could only be 3 years ago. How old were you 3 years ago?" 3 years ago, 12 years old. 12 years old. That dragon lady had the nerve to lay her hands on him. If she was not 15 years old, and if both of them were not ignorant back then, something might have happened. Thinking of that seductive woman, Yang Kai couldn't help but feel a little sad, wondering how she was doing right now. But brother, you have to be careful. Who may or has a high opinion of herself. You have embarrassed her this time. She won't let it go so easily. Sassafras reminded him. She wants to deal with me. Yang Kai's face turned cold. Sassafras smiled meaningfully. Yes, she wants to deal with you in bed. Just wait and see. She will definitely try to seduce you. She won't give up until she gets what she wants. Brother, you have good luck with women. I don't like that kind of person. Yang Kai did not take this to heart. He looked at Sassafras and said, "You said you have something to tell me. So this is it?" "Of course not." Sassafras straightened his face and said, "Brother, you have used up a lot of precious yuan qi to deal with Qing Xiaofeng and the others. I just want to make it up to you. Make it up to me." "Yes." Sassafras nodded. He then took out a bottle and handed it to Yang Kai. "This is a bottle of small qi recovery pills. Brother, take it. It should be able to make up for the yuan qi you lost." Yang Kai had heard of small qi recovery pills before. These pills were not very effective. In fact, they were very mild. This was because they were mainly used for cultivators like Yang Kai who were around tempered body stage 7. From tempered body stage 7 to tempered body stage 9, yuan qi was produced in the cultivator's body. It could be slowly increased through the cultivation of martial arts. However, because the cultivator had not reached the initial element stage, there was no way to quickly recover yuan qi. Therefore, yuan qi was very precious. Once it was lost, one would have to pay a huge price to cultivate it back again. Small qi recovery pills could save a lot of cultivation time. For cultivators at tempered body stage 7 to tempered body stage 9, these pills were very popular and expensive. However, for cultivators at the initial element stage and above, they were completely useless. However, Yang Kai's situation was different from others. He cultivated the true Yang tactics, so he did not need to worry about the yuan qi in his body. Even if his yuan qi was depleted, he still had Yang liquid. Therefore, this bottle of small qi recovery pills was not very valuable. Just as he was about to refuse, Sassafras seemed to have seen through his thoughts. He said seriously, "I don't want to owe people favors." "All right, then I'll accept it." Yang Kai did not refuse. Sassafras smiled. "Brother, wait for me here tomorrow. I'll take you to a good place." "Where?" Yang Kai was puzzled. Sassafras smiled but did not answer. He only asked him to wait and promised that he would not let him down. Chapter 43. In the Black Wind Forest, Ling Zhao's group of more than 10 people was walking. Yang Kai didn't expect that the place Sassafras wanted to bring him to was actually the Black Wind Forest. Walking in the forest, Yang Kai saw a very obvious path. In this kind of dense forest, if it wasn't for the frequent movement of people, it would be impossible to create a path. Were there a lot of people going in and out of the Black Wind Forest? Yang Kai looked around and found that this was indeed the case. Not far from them, there were some people walking in the same direction as them. "Brother, do you know why we met Qing Xiaofeng and his group at the edge of the Black Wind Forest?" Sassafras and Yang Kai walked side by side and asked for no reason. Yang Kai's expression changed. He had a faint guess in his heart. Could it be that Qing Xiaofeng and his group also want to come to the Black Wind Forest? That's right. Our Ling Xiao, Storm House and Blood Group aren't too far from each other. This Black Wind Forest is also about the same distance from the three families. Basically, if our three families' disciples want to come here, they have to go through that fork in the road. What's so attractive about this place? Why else would all of you come here? Hee hee. Sassafras smiled proudly. "Brother, you don't know. There is a trade market here in the Black Wind Forest. It is where our three families' disciples and even the entire Black Plum Town's cultivator trade. Disciples can use their useless cultivation materials to exchange for useful things. They can also sell them for gold and silver. This Black Wind trade market is very lively. Brother, you must come and take a look." Li Yun Tian also said, "That's right, brother, you can often find good things here. Last time, young Master Su bought a Heaven Origin fruit for 10 taels of silver." Heaven Origin fruit. Yang Kai's expression changed slightly. Yes, a low earth level spirit fruit. The seller didn't know the value of the fruit, so I took advantage of it. Sassafras said proudly. If a low-grade earth-level spirit fruit were to be exchanged for silver, it would be worth at least 1,000 taels of silver. However, Sassafras had bought it for only 10 taels of silver. Wasn't that a huge bargain? Yang Kai had never heard of this Black Wind trade before. He had joined Soaring Cloud Academy for more than 3 years, but he had never made friends with anyone. Naturally, no one had told him about this. From the looks of it, Sassafras and his group frequented this place frequently. They were all familiar with each other. From their conversations, Yang Kai heard a lot of interesting stories. He was looking forward to this place. Since he practiced the true Yang secret art, he could find some Yang attribute pills to use, but he was a bit short on money. Recalling the small bottle of Qi recovery pills that Sassafras had given him yesterday, Yang Kai felt a little more confident. The Black Wind trade market was a little far away, so the group chatted as they walked. Yang Kai suddenly asked, "Junior brother, does our Soaring Cloud Academy have an 11th elder?" He remembered the old man he saw that day at the Coiling Dragon Stream. That old man was full of mystery, and it was hard to forget him. 11th elder. Sassafras was stunned. Where did Soaring Cloud Academy get this 11th elder? "Oh, I was just casually asking." Kai Yang finally understood. When the old man said he was the 11th elder, he had some doubts. Now it seemed that this identity was fake, but the old man's temperament was kind, and he didn't have any malicious intentions towards him. Kai Yang naturally didn't want to get to the bottom of this matter, as it would only annoy the old man. Li Yun Tian smiled. "Brother Yang is always cultivating, so I'm afraid you don't know much about our Soaring Cloud Academy. There are only 5 elders, and no 11th elder." This group of people all knew that Yang Kai had been bullied and humiliated in the past, so they kindly explained a lot about Soaring Cloud Academy to him, so that he wouldn't ask any embarrassing questions in the future. Sassafras had an elder as his backer, so he knew more about Soaring Cloud Academy than anyone else. As they talked, they somehow ended up talking about the Soaring Cloud Academy's sect leader. Sassafras lowered his voice and said, "I heard Old Ghost say that our sect leader is an extraordinary person. His strength has already reached the peak of the immortal ascension boundary, and he only needs one step to break through. He is the #1 expert within a few thousand miles. Peak of the immortal ascension boundary. Yang Kai's heart was shocked. A cultivator's cultivation level starts from the tempered body stage, and goes up to the initial element stage, the Qi transformation stage, the separation and reunion stage, the Yuan Qi stage, and the immortal ascension boundary. Each stage has 9 stages, and the higher one's strength, the harder it is to break through. The immortal ascension boundary is very rare, but who would have thought that the sect leader of Soaring Cloud Academy had already reached the peak of this realm? That blood group's leader, Hu Man, and Storm House's leader, Xiao Roa Han, are only at the 6th or 7th stage of the immortal ascension boundary. They can't be compared to our sect leader, Sassafras said with a face full of pride. After all, if a sect leader's strength was tyrannical, his disciples would also feel proud. How long will it take for the sect leader to break through? Li Yuntian asked excitedly. If the sect leader suddenly broke through, then within a few thousand miles, Soaring Cloud Academy would be the only sect leader. Who would dare to provoke him? Sassafras's expression darkened, and he slowly shook his head and sighed. What's wrong? Li Yuntian saw him like this and couldn't help but feel nervous. Old Ghost said that the sect leader had actually reached the peak of the immortal ascension boundary more than 10 years ago. Then why hasn't he broken through until now? Everyone was puzzled. More than 10 years, no matter how difficult it was to cultivate, he should have broken through by now. Sassafras could only shake his head. I don't dare to say. Young Master Su, how can you be like this? You arouse the curiosity of our brothers and then you don't care. Isn't this the same as taking off a beauty's clothes and not touching her? That's too inhumane. Zhao Hu shouted, and the group of people also enthusiastically asked Sassafras to continue speaking. All right, but you all have to remember, this matter must not be spread out, or else there will be big trouble. Sassafras took a good attitude, looked around, and lowered his voice. More than 10 years ago, a big matter happened in Soaring Cloud Academy. It was because of this matter that the sect leader's cultivation has been stagnant. What matter? Everyone swallowed their saliva. Our sect leader had no wife or children in his life, and only took in 2 disciples. The cause of this matter was because of these 2 disciples. Of these 2 disciples, the eldest brother was diligent, and the second junior brother was intelligent. Both of them were outstanding, and the sect leader also taught them with all his heart, without holding back. The 2 of them also worked hard, and in terms of strength, they were neck and neck, and neither was inferior to the other. However, because the 2 of them had different temperaments, the sect leader's teaching methods were somewhat different. He praised the eldest brother, but was harsh and strict towards the second junior brother. This caused the second junior brother to misunderstand the sect leader's intentions, thinking that the sect leader was biased towards the eldest brother. Because of this hatred, the second junior brother gradually distanced himself from the eldest brother, and his heart became more and more depressed, to the point where he found an evil secret art from somewhere to practice. Ah! Everyone exclaimed in shock. Sassafras continued to speak, and everyone listened attentively. Who would have thought that Sassafras was born with a sharp tongue, and his storytelling skills were definitely top-notch. His words were incisive, and in just a few words, he had revealed the grudge between the brother and the second brother in front of everyone. Yang Kai only listened in silence, and did not interrupt. He felt that this matter should be true, but Sassafras had also exaggerated. Chapter 44. After cultivating this secret art, the second junior brother's temperament changed greatly, but his strength also increased greatly. Unexpectedly, the eldest brother was not his opponent. The second junior brother thought that because his strength had increased, the sect master would favor him. However, the matter of him cultivating this secret art was finally discovered by the sect master. The sect master was heartbroken and decided to cripple his cultivation. However, Before the sect master could act, the second junior brother had already received the news in advance. This news caused the second junior brother's mind to be completely swallowed up by the demonic chi, becoming the demon race. That night more than 10 years ago, High Heaven Pavilion was bathed in blood. The eldest brother died tragically on the spot, while the second junior brother fled for his life. At this point, Sassafras paused for a moment, turning his head to see everyone nervously holding their breaths, listening attentively. Feeling satisfied, he continued, overnight, the sect master's hair turned white. Of his two most proud disciples, one died and the other became the demon race. The blow to him can be imagined. Since then, the sect leader has lived in seclusion and very few people have seen his shadow. Everyone thought that his soul had been shattered and that he had passed away. Who would have thought that after a few years, the sect leader would once again come out of seclusion? This time, he had personally captured his second disciple and sealed him in the coiling dragon stream. Yang Kai's heart suddenly moved, suddenly remembering the last words of the mysterious 11th elder. I didn't come here to see a treasure, I came here to see a person. See who? Undoubtedly, it was the person sealed in the coiling dragon stream. Could it be that this 11th elder, Sassafras continued, but after this incident, the sect master was unable to break through to the immortal ascension boundary and could only remain at this stage. If this knot is not untied, he will not be able to live in peace for the rest of his life. After listening to the story, everyone couldn't help but sigh, feeling pity for High Heaven Pavilion's sect master, cursing the second disciple who had fallen into the devil's path. Yang Kai's mood was also fluctuating. Was this 11th elder really the demon race? If Sassafras' story was true, then this old man was very likely to be the sect master. At this moment, a burst of lively noise came from the front. Raising his head, Kai Yang saw that there was a large open space in the middle of the forest. At this moment, there was a boiling cauldron of voices, like a huge market. The disciples of the nearby 3 sects had all gathered here. Large and small stalls were filled with a dazzling array of goods. It was a feast for the eyes. There were even dozens of wooden houses next to it. The wooden houses were built very simply. Some were big and some were small. The small ones were for people to live in, while the big ones were for people to shelter from the wind and rain. They could accommodate many people. Because it was a sunny day, the disciples of the 3 sects had set up their stalls in an empty space. The Black Wind Trade Market was a completely different world. Alright, we're here. Su Mu's main purpose this time was to bring Kai Yang here, to let him know of the existence of this place. In the future, if he had any needs, he could come here to trade. This place is not bad. Yang Kai looked at the people coming and going in the market with a somewhat excited expression. Sassafras laughed, of course. Here, we have everything that we low-level cultivators want. Moreover, we don't have to worry about safety. The 3 sects all have experts here to maintain law and order. Do you see those small wooden houses? That is where the High Heaven Pavilion disciples are stationed. My sister is inside. Your sister? Yang Kai looked at him and suddenly remembered that last time when Sassafras came looking for trouble, he said that his sister was a core disciple. Core disciples were the future hope of High Heaven Pavilion. Sassafras suddenly became alert. I'm warning you, don't even think about having any ideas about my sister. Yang Kai couldn't help but laugh. Sassafras said again, but even if you have any ideas about her, I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Is your sister very strong? Of course. Yuan Chi 3rd stage. Not many people in the younger generation can be her opponent. Yang Kai was slightly moved. As a disciple of the younger generation, being able to cultivate to the Yuan Chi stage was already very rare. Above the Yuan Chi stage was the Immortal Ascension stage, which was the sect leader's current stage. If your sister is so strong, why are you only at the tempered body stage? Yang Kai looked at Sassafras with a puzzled expression. As if he had been poked at a sore spot, Sassafras' face suddenly became embarrassed. After a long time, he said, "Isn't it because I want to play? But don't worry, I will definitely cultivate diligently in the future. I can't let a trial disciple like you surpass me." Yang Kai nodded slightly. It seemed that the suffering of the past few days had aroused Sassafras' competitive spirit. "Let's go, I will take you to see my sister first. With her protection, it will be more convenient to do things in Black Wind trade." Speaking of going to see Sassafras' sister, the group's expression immediately became serious. Even Sassafras himself tidied up his clothes and flicked off all the dust on his body. It was obvious that Sassafras was very afraid of his sister, or perhaps it was more accurate to say that he respected and worshipped her. "What is Sassafras' sister's name?" Yang Kai asked Li Yuntian in a low voice. "Su Yan." Her name was not bad, but he didn't know what kind of person she was. Not long after, the group arrived at one of the wooden houses. Yang Kai looked up and found that not only this wooden house, but also the other wooden houses next to it had the words, "High Heaven Pavilion," hanging on them. It seemed that these houses were all occupied by the experts of High Heaven Pavilion. Sassafras was a little nervous. He gently breathed in and carefully walked up the stairs. Then, he elegantly raised his hand and gently knocked a few times. His voice was as obedient as a kitten's. "Sister, I've come to see you." Li Yuntian and the others tried their best to hold back their laughter, their shoulders shaking. Yang Kai also couldn't help but laugh. Sassafras seemed to know the expressions of the group behind him and couldn't help but glare at them. "Come in." A somewhat cold voice came from inside. It was like a mountain stream, refreshing everyone's eyes and ears. Sassafras waved at everyone and stepped inside. Walking into the house, Kai Yang quietly glanced around. He discovered that this house was even more simple and crude than his own cabin. There was nothing inside, but once he entered the house, the noise and bustle outside was suddenly cut off, making it very quiet. There should be something mysterious about this wooden house, otherwise it wouldn't have such an effect. Just as he was looking around the house, Sassafras suddenly screamed. Yang Kai looked over and saw Sassafras half squatting on the ground while holding his head. Not far in front of him, there was a woman in white clothes with an ice-cold expression. This woman had a head of beautiful black hair that was tied into a cloud bun. She had crescent-shaped willow leaf eyebrows, a pair of slender and bright eyes, a delicate nose, rosy cheeks, delicate cherry lips, skin that was like snow jade and tender like honey. Her figure was graceful and slender, and she was indescribably charming. However, her temperament was unusually cold, causing the temperature of the wooden house to drop a few degrees. At this moment, this woman was sitting cross-legged on the ground, coldly looking at Sassafras. Needless to say, this was Su Yan. "Do you know why I hit you?" Su Yan asked. Sassafras shook his head. Seeing the ominous light in his sister's eyes, he quickly nodded. "Tell me." Su Yan's voice was very soft, but there was a kind of feeling that made people unable to resist. Kai Yang now understood why Su Mu was so afraid of his elder sister. Who would have this kind of elder sister, who wouldn't be able to stand it, even if she was an absolute beauty? Chapter 45. Because I was beaten up by someone, Sassafras did not dare to ignore his sister's question, and as he answered, he secretly glanced at Su Yan. Su Yan's face was cold. "Why were you beaten up?" "My skills were not as good as others." Sassafras lowered his head. "Why were you not as good as others?" Su Yan asked. Sassafras stuttered, "I didn't cultivate properly." Su Yan nodded slightly. "At least you have some self-awareness. Do you know what to do in the future?" Yes. Remember what you said today. If you dare to play around in the future, the one who will beat you up will not be someone else, but me. Sassafras's expression changed, and he repeatedly promised that he would cultivate diligently and not disappoint his sister's expectations. After teaching Sassafras a lesson, Su Yan raised her head and looked at the people behind him. Her beautiful eyes swept across them and fixed on Yang Kai. A trace of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she said, "You were the one who beat up Qing Xiaofeng." Yang Kai secretly thought that this senior sister was very well informed. Even though she was cultivating here, she still knew what was happening outside. He nodded slightly and said, "Yes. You're more promising than Sassafras." Su Yan didn't pay too much attention to it. Kai Yang didn't look very old, but he was at least 15 to 16 years old. Even now, he was only at the tempered body 8th stage, so his aptitude shouldn't be too good. Naturally, he wouldn't enter her eyes. The only reason she was willing to talk to Kai Yang was because he had saved Su Mu's life. "Let me give you a piece of advice. Please speak, senior sister." Yang Kai's expression was calm. "Stay away from Sassafras. If you continue to stay with him, your achievements will end here." Yang Kai smiled slightly, but did not reply. She could belittle Sassafras, but Yang Kai could not. Sassafras heard this, and his face immediately turned bitter, but he did not dare to say anything. "Go out, I want to cultivate," Su Yan said and closed her eyes again. The group of people quietly left the room and closed the door. They looked at each other and couldn't help but gasp for air. The pressure inside was too great. Although the beauty was pleasing to the eye, they were afraid that even their bodies and minds would be sealed in ice after a long time. "I'm going to take a look at the progress of the Dan I had people refine a few days ago," Li Yuntian said, then took his leave. "I want to go too." A few people quickly followed. Not long after, everyone dispersed and went about their own business. Only Sassafras and Yang Kai were left. Yang Kai saw that Sassafras seemed to have something to do as well, so he smiled and said, "Junior brother, go ahead and do your own thing. I'll just walk around here." Sassafras nodded. "Sure. Let me know if you see anything you like. I'll help you check it out." Although most of the people here are decent, there are still some who are treacherous. Don't let them take advantage of you. After parting ways with Sassafras, Yang Kai casually walked around Black Wind Trade. The disciples of the three sects were all sitting around with stalls in front of them. They had things they wanted to sell or put up signs to say what they wanted to buy. Some of them were shouting loudly like vegetable sellers in the market, promoting their goods with enthusiasm. Some had arrogant expressions and put on an expression that said it was up to them whether they wanted to buy or not, putting on airs to lure others into taking the bait. Some of them were bored and actually cultivated on the spot, not fearing that their goods would be taken away by others. There were all kinds of appearances, and so on and so forth. After walking for a while, Yang Kai found that the stalls here were not only for selling and buying things. There were also some low-level alchemists who put up signs to refine Dan for others, and did not accept a single cent. Don't think that they were doing something good. In fact, they just needed to use other people's materials to practice. These people did not have enough experience in alchemy. 8 out of 10 of their furnaces were broken, so these stalls were relatively quiet. However, there were not many of these stalls. After all, alchemists were relatively rare. Yang Kai had been paying attention to Yang attribute items. In fact, before he entered this Black Wind Trade, the origin of Yang on his chest had already reacted. The chaotic reaction showed that there were many Yang attribute treasures here. But along the way, Kai Yang had discovered that many things were of a lower grade. The yang qi contained within those herbs was not as dense as the one that overflowed from the coiling dragon stream, so he naturally wouldn't be interested in them. He also took a fancy to a few items, but after asking about the price, he could only shake his head and sigh. The price was too high, and it was not something that he could afford right now. After walking around for an hour, Yang Kai still had not found anything. However, he figured out the price of the small chi recovery pills. Because the small chi recovery pills were only for body tempering realm level 7 to level 9 cultivator, this kind of dan was only worth about 50 taels. The bottle that Sassafras gave him had 10 dan pills, which was worth about 500 taels. 500 taels was not enough to do anything. The stall in front of him had a fiery red stone. Yang Kai could clearly feel the hot yang qi coming from it. It was many times denser than the one in the coiling dragon stream. Yang Kai estimated that if he absorbed the yang qi in this stone, he would be able to condense at least 2 to 3 drops of yang liquid. This was equivalent to many days of bitter cultivation. Even though he knew that the stall owner in front of him was not easy to get along with, he would definitely ask for a high price. Yang Kai did not give up and squatted down in front of him. The stall owner's face was cold as if someone owed him money. He only glanced at Yang Kai and then ignored him. Yang Kai pretended to pick up the other items and asked for the price. The stall owner was a man of few words and casually answered. Then, Yang Kai casually picked up the fiery red stone and asked, "How much is this?" The stall owner sneered and this time said a few more words, "This is the most expensive item in the stall, 3,000 taels." Yang Kai completely lost his mind. This was a completely sky-high price. This price was too far from his bottom line. How could he negotiate? Just as he put down the items and was about to stand up, Yang Kai felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning his head, he saw a charming woman smiling at him. "It really is you." Hu Mei was a bit surprised. "What's the matter?" Yang Kai frowned. To be honest, he did not have a good impression of this wanton woman. Although she was dressed quite neatly, her impudence that day had already left a bad impression on Yang Kai. Sensing Yang Kai's coldness, Hu Mei glared at him and said, "Nothing, I just came to say hello. And, goodbye." Yang Kai indifferently replied and turned to leave. "Hey!" Hu Mei followed closely behind and walked together with Yang Kai. Intentionally or unintentionally, her delicate body stuck close to him. While walking, she also observed Yang Kai's reaction. After walking for an incense stick's worth of time, Yang Kai was a bit depressed. He found that this woman was not only flirtatious, but also thick-skinned. He clearly did not want to pay attention to her, but she still refused to leave. "Why are you following me?" Yang Kai stopped in his tracks and was a bit unhappy. "I'm not following you. This is Black Wind Trade City, I'm just strolling around." "What's wrong, do you care about me?" Hu Mei laughed. "Don't follow me anymore, be careful or I won't be polite to you." Yang Kai was angry. Not only was Hu Mei not afraid, she was even eager to try. "How will you not be polite? Like last time?" Chapter 46. Yang Kai didn't have a good way to deal with this woman's pestering, so he could only ignore her. Hu Mei could also see Yang Kai's indifference, so she didn't dare to tease him anymore. She just followed him like a shadow. Following the direction of the origin of Yang seal, Yang Kai walked for a while before stopping in front of a stall. After taking a quick look, Yang Kai's eyes lit up. He found that the items in this stall were quite good, and most of them were to his liking. Those round stones were the size of a baby's fist, emitting a rich hot yang qi. They were much better than the ones in the previous stall, but they weren't as big. The price shouldn't be more expensive than the previous one, right? Yang Kai couldn't decide, but the stall owner enthusiastically greeted him, "Little brother, what have you taken a fancy to? My items here are good quality and cheap, so don't miss this opportunity. Whether you use them for yourself or resell them, they are all profitable transactions." Bracing himself, Yang Kai asked, "How much are these stones?" The stall owner looked down and smiled, "You're talking about the Yang inflammation stones. They're not expensive, just 500 taels each." Yang Kai's face darkened. Although he knew that this price was fair, he still shook his head, "That's a bit expensive." He only had about 500 taels on him. The stall owner smiled and shook his head, "Little brother is joking. My items here are clearly marked, so I definitely won't ask for too much. You can go to other stalls and see their prices. Then you'll know how much I can offer." These words were true. Yang Kai hadn't bought anything on the way here, but he had heard a lot about the prices and knew that this stall owner's prices weren't high. But this was business, so of course he had to haggle. Helpless, Yang Kai could only engage in a war of words with the stall owner, trying to get the other party to give him some benefits. But the stall owner kept shaking his head. In the end, the stall owner became depressed and had no choice but to say, "Little brother, these things don't belong to me. I'm selling them on behalf of the gang, so I can only sell more, not less. Otherwise, I'll have to pay for it out of my own pocket. Please don't make things difficult for me." The gang. Yang Kai was stunned. He turned his head to look at Hu Mei, who was standing at the side. There was only one gang in the vicinity, the Blood Group. Hu Mei smiled sweetly, "That's right, this is my family's stall. Do you want these stones?" Yang Kai nodded. "Promise me one thing, and I'll give you all of these stones." Hu Mei rolled her eyes. "Miss." The stall owner's expression changed drastically. If he lost this batch of goods, he would be in big trouble. "Don't worry, I'll tell father." Hu Mei comforted him. When the stall owner heard this, he immediately shut up. "How is it? You just need to promise me one thing." Hu Mei beamed with delight. "For you men, it's a very simple matter. Don't even think about it." Yang Kai flatly refused. He didn't need to think to know what Hu Mei was planning. "You." Hu Mei angrily glared at Yang Kai. Her eyes looked as if she wanted to eat him. In fact, she wasn't very interested in Yang Kai. It was just that when she took the initiative to seduce him that day, he wasn't conquered. This made Hu Mei somewhat depressed. Not only that, she also suffered a small loss. There wasn't a single man who wouldn't be tempted by her beauty. Hu Mei firmly believed in this point. She wanted to make Yang Kai yield. When he yielded, she would withdraw and properly watch him make a fool of himself. If Hu Mei wanted men, she could just casually wave her finger and there would be a pile of them. If she didn't have other motives, how could she wrong herself like this? She was flirtatious and wanton, but that was just a facade. A facade to confuse others. "I don't believe that I can't conquer you." Hu Mei's heart hardened. Rolling her eyes, Hu Mei said to the stall owner, "Sell it to him at a cheaper price." The stall owner scowled miserably, "That's not good. I said sell it to him at a cheaper price." Hu Mei lightly gritted her teeth, her charming eyes cold. Just as the stall owner was about to nod, Yang Kai waved his hand and said, "No need, just 500 taels." If he bought it for 500 taels, he wouldn't make a profit, but he wouldn't lose out either. It was the market price. As he said this, he took out the bottle of chi recovery pills and said, "Can I use these pills to exchange for it?" The trade market here also had the rules of bartering. Finished pills could generally be circulated. "Sure." The stall owner nodded. "This bottle of chi recovery pills has 10 pills. It's about 500 taels. You can count them. Yang Kai threw the chi recovery pills to him and then picked up a yang inflammation stone from the stall. The moment it entered his hand, Yang Kai felt a surge of yang energy. He immediately felt happy as he knew that this transaction was the right one. Hu Mei Er gritted her teeth hatefully. Yang Kai's actions clearly showed that he didn't want to owe her a favor, which meant that her goodwill just now was wasted. The stall owner observed her expression and knew that this lady with a bad reputation was probably thinking about Yang Kai. Although the transaction just now was fair, the stall owner knew that his lady wasn't very happy. After thinking for a while, he picked up something from the stall and said, "Little brother, if you don't mind, I'll give you this seed. It won't sell for much anyway." "What seed?" Yang Kai took it and actually felt a bit of yang qi from the seed. However, this yang qi was very weak. The seed of the three-sun fruit. "We found it when we were helping to mine the yang inflammation stone," the stall owner said truthfully. "The fruit produced by this fruit tree is a low-grade earth-grade spirit fruit, but it takes a long time to mature." Yang Kai laughed involuntarily. He thought to himself, "Why would I want a seed? If this thing was planted, it wouldn't bear fruit for at least 10 years. However, since the other party had good intentions, Yang Kai couldn't very well refuse. After all, this thing wasn't very valuable, so there was no harm in accepting it. "Thanks." Yang Kai stood up and put the seed and the yang inflammation stone into his pocket. A bottle of chi recovery pills was already gone, so Yang Kai was too lazy to stay here any longer. After looking for Sassafras and the others for a while, Yang Kai didn't see them. Thus, he walked towards Black Wind Forest alone. Behind him, Hu Mei Er refused to leave. She followed him like a tail with an angry expression on her face. He had to think of a way to get rid of her. Otherwise, if she followed him to Sky Tower, who knew what others would think of him? This woman's reputation wasn't very good. After thinking for a while, Yang Kai suddenly deviated from the main road and walked towards the depths of Black Wind Forest. As he walked, he turned around and laughed coldly at Hu Mei Er. The meaning was self-evident. It was as if he was saying that if she dared to follow him, he would first rape and then kill her, then rape and then kill her. A sinister feeling arose spontaneously. Hu Mei Er was frightened by his laughter. Seeing Yang Kai actually walk into the forest, she hesitated. Speaking of which, she wasn't familiar with Yang Kai. If she followed him in and he really did something to her, what should she do? That day, she had seen Yang Kai's strength and knew that she wasn't his match. If he went berserk, she might end up with scars all over her body. After hesitating for a moment, Hu Mei Er suddenly stomped her feet and followed him in. She was 80% sure that Yang Kai was just scaring her. Seeing that Hu Mei Er really did follow him in, Yang Kai was immediately annoyed. The reason why he did this was to scare Hu Mei Er off. However, he didn't expect that this woman's courage would be so great and cause his plan to fail. In a moment, anger rose from his heart and he became bold. He thought to himself, "Wait until we reach a place where there's no one and I'll let you know my strength." Chapter 47. When Yang Kai and Hu Mei Er's figures entered the depths of the forest one after the other, two figures flashed out from behind a tree not far away. One of them looked at the direction Yang Kai disappeared with a bone-deep hatred. His handsome face still had some bruises. With one look, it was clear that he had been beaten up recently. The other person's eyes were malicious, staring at Hu Mei Er's swaying hips, his eyes flashing with a strange light. "Junior brother Qing, you were beaten up by that kind of person." The young man with a cold expression looked at Qing Xiaofeng with some interest. "Although you just entered the initial element stage, you shouldn't be unable to beat him. That brat looks like he's only in the tempered body stage." Qing Xiaofeng's face was embarrassed. "I was a bit careless at that time. and that guy was really strange. When he fought, he didn't care about his life at all. When I stabbed my sword, he actually blocked it with his palm. When my sword passed through, he didn't even make a sound. Not only did he stop my sword, he also grabbed one of my arms. Because of this, I lost. Oh. That's a bit interesting, but I don't know who is fiercer between him and me. Cheng Xiaofeng smiled. Naturally, brother Nu Tao is more powerful. How could he compare to you? Have you investigated his identity? Don't provoke some master being. Nu Tao asked with some worry. Yes, this brat is just a trial disciple in Sky Tower. He has no background. Even if we kill this kind of person, there's no harm. Trial disciple. As far as I know, Sky Tower has less than 10 trial disciples, right? He's one of them. Nu Tao seemed to have heard something funny, but when he heard the words trial disciple, Nu Tao's worry disappeared. This kind of person was Sky Tower's disgrace. If he personally dealt with him, it would be equivalent to doing Sky Tower a big favor. Originally, I was worried about the Black Wind Forest with so many people coming and going, so it wouldn't be convenient to act. But I didn't expect this brat to be greedy for beauty and actually go with that slut into the depths of the forest to do some dirty things. The heavens are really helping me. Nu Tao laughed incomparably obscenely. It seems that junior brother not only can take revenge this time, but also have good luck with women. It's really killing two birds with one stone. Cheng Xiaofeng also laughed. Brother, what are you saying? You are the helper I invited. How could junior brother enjoy all the good things by himself? Later, when big brother has a taste of the soup, junior brother will support you. Although that slut Hu Mei Er is licentious, she is still young, so her body is definitely not bad. Junior brother is really something. Nu Tao couldn't wait any longer and said, let's go. There's no time to lose. Let's catch up and find a chance to make a move. From their point of view, killing Yang Kai was just a small matter. To be able to sleep with Hu Mei Er in broad daylight, with the sky as their bed and the earth as their back, was what they were looking forward to the most. As for whether or not Hu Mei Er would retaliate after this, there was no need to consider. This slut could be married to anyone. As long as she was satisfied, she would be overjoyed. How could she bear to retaliate? Presumably, when the time came, she would only be immersed in the pleasure of being forcefully humiliated. She wouldn't consider anything else. The two of them weren't virgins. Normally, they would seek pleasure in the brothels of Black Plum Village. Naturally, they knew that a woman like Hu Mei Er had some special fetishes. In the depths of Black Wind Forest, Yang Kai continued to walk while turning his head and sneering. At the beginning, Hu Mei Er was still a bit worried, but now that she saw that Yang Kai was only deliberately mystifying her, she was no longer afraid. Not only was she not afraid, she actually caught up to Yang Kai's pace. Intimately holding onto his hand, she squeezed her soft and supple bosom onto Yang Kai's arm. Yang Kai's heart was like a monkey and like a horse galloping, but when he thought of this woman's style, his aroused interest immediately disappeared. What are you trying to do? Yang Kai was a bit angry. Accompany me once. I won't bother you in the future. There was no one around. Hu Mei Er's mouth didn't hold back, daring to say such shameful words. In your dreams. Am I not beautiful? Hu Mei Er's eyes were like silk. Is my figure not good? Don't tell me you're not even a little bit moved. A woman is divided into outside and inside. Your outside is not bad and you have the capital to be proud of, but your inside is unbearable to look at. Yang Kai coldly looked at her. These words were a bit heavy. Hu Mei Er's face fell as she coldly said, You think I'm dirty? Yes. Yang Kai bluntly said. Hu Mei-er's charming face turned cold as she sneered, "You're just a trial disciple of High Heaven Pavilion. Although my strength isn't as high as yours, I'm still the little princess of blood group. For me to take a fancy to you is your good fortune. You actually don't know how to appreciate favors. Do you know how many people outside have designs on me? Then little princess can go find those people, why bother me?" Yang Kai's expression was indifferent. "Yang Kai, don't be so shameless. If I go back and tell my father that I was insulted by you here, even if you're a member of High Heaven Pavilion, you won't be able to see tomorrow's sun." Hu Mei-er shouted with all her might. Yang Kai's attitude had thoroughly angered her, causing her to lose all face. After all, her status wasn't low. When had she ever been insulted like this? Yang Kai coldly smiled. "Dare I ask, little princess, if I were to kill you here, would you still have the opportunity to go back and complain?" Hu Mei-er was stunned. Just now, she was so angry that she completely forgot that this was the depths of Black Wind Forest. If Yang Kai really dared to make a move, she absolutely wouldn't have the chance to leave this place alive. Moreover, this was definitely the best place to kill and dispose of a corpse. It could be said that if she really died here, then she would have died in vain. Thinking of this, Hu Mei-er immediately vigilantly looked at Yang Kai. She hurriedly retreated a few steps and said in a trembling voice, "You're joking, right? My patience is limited." Yang Kai indifferently said. Hu Mei-er glared at him, her eyes filled with humiliation and anger, but she didn't dare to do anything. She wasn't sure if Yang Kai's words just now were a joke or if he was serious. Just as Hu Mei-er was at a loss, Yang Kai's expression changed and he vigilantly looked to the side. Intentionally or not, Yang Kai's footsteps flashed and blocked in front of Hu Mei-er. Staring at a large tree, he lightly shouted, "Come out." Hearing this, Hu Mei-er was extremely shocked, but in the next moment, she understood what was going on. Two people suddenly flashed out from behind the tree, sneering as they walked over. These two people's laughter was sinister and strange. One person stared at Yang Kai, the other stared at Hu Mei-er. "Qing Xiaofeng, Nu Tao." Hu Mei-er clearly recognized them and immediately called out in confusion. In the blink of an eye, she understood why these two people would appear here. This time, Yang Kai was afraid that he would be in danger. Being stared at by Nu Tao's unbridled and unbearably obscene gaze made Hu Mei-er's entire body uneasy. She couldn't help but slightly wrinkle her brows and quietly shrink behind Yang Kai. "Sister Mei-er, this time, we only came to take this brat's life. You should move to the side, we don't want to hurt you." Qing Xiaofeng stood 5 zhang in front of Yang Kai and slowly pulled out the sword at his waist as he spoke to Hu Mei-er. Nu Tao laughed sinisterly, "That's right. If you get hurt, my heart will ache." Chapter 48. Both Qing Xiaofeng and Nu Tao had already stated their purpose for coming here. Yang Kai was slightly shocked. He didn't expect these two to be so vicious and merciless. Just because of a dispute, they actually went to the point of killing. While he was vigilant, Hu Mei-er quietly whispered into Yang Kai's ear, "Yang Kai, if you don't want to die, listen to me obediently." That Nu Tao was already at the 5th level of the initial element realm half a month ago. His strength isn't something Qing Xiaofeng can compare to. Moreover, there are 2 of them now. You definitely aren't their match. You have a way to deal with him. Yang Kai was puzzled. "I can't deal with him, but they definitely won't dare to kill me. As long as you satisfy my request, I can guarantee your safety." Hu Mei-er's identity was there. If she wanted to protect Yang Kai, Qing Xiaofeng and Nu Tao would have to give her face. At most, they would beat Yang Kai up to vent their anger. No need. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. You'd rather die than agree. Hu Mei'er looked at Yang Kai as if she was looking at an idiot. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. Sorry, I'm a bit of a clean freak. Besides, who lives and who dies, we'll know after we fight. Yang Kai calmly looked at the two people in front of him. After getting this answer, Hu Mei'er's expression kept changing. After a while, she coldly laughed. Gritting her teeth, she hatefully said, "If that's the case, then you should conduct yourself with dignity." After saying this, she retreated a few feet and put on an appearance of watching with folded arms. Qing Xiaofeng laughed loudly. Sister Mei'er is so obedient. I knew Sister Mei'er wouldn't make things difficult for me. Hu Mei'er squeezed out an ugly smile. It was unknown what she was thinking in her heart. Nu Tao laughed strangely. Sizing up Yang Kai, he calmly crossed his hands behind his back and slowly shook his head. You're called Yang Kai, right? Don't blame me when you reach the underworld. You can only blame yourself for meddling in other people's business. Do you want to end it yourself, or do you want me to do it? This tone was extremely arrogant. Yang Kai smiled and said, If you want my life, then take it with your own ability. As he said this, he secretly activated the True Yang tactics. Who would have thought that as soon as he activated the True Yang tactics, Yang Kai clearly felt an intense heat in his chest and entered his meridians. This heat was mixed with a huge amount of Yang Qi. Yang Kai was shocked, but before he could react, his meridians had already adapted to the intense pain, and the large amount of Yang Qi continued to flow into his meridians, too. Yuan. Yang. A moment later, there was another light dripping sound. After 3 breaths of time, 2 drops of Yang liquid were formed. However, one of the drops disappeared as soon as it was formed. At this moment, the fierce Yang Qi suddenly stopped moving. Yang Inflammation Stone. Yang Kai suddenly recovered and took out the Yang Inflammation Stone from his chest. He had spent a bottle of Qi recovery pills to exchange for it. But how could this stone, which was originally filled with Yang Qi, still have its original appearance? The energy inside was completely gone. In such a short time, it had all been absorbed by him. The result was 2 drops of Yang liquid. However, one of the drops had disappeared. Including the one that originally existed in the Dantian, there were still 2 drops left. This absorption speed was too fast, right? It was almost like force-feeding. He didn't even have time to react. Qing Xiaofeng and Nu Tao saw the changes on Yang Kai's side. The abnormality on Yang Kai's chest made them somewhat confused, but Nu Tao was experienced in fighting. He immediately waved his hand and said, Junior brother Qing, come with me. I'm afraid something unexpected will happen. Qing Xiaofeng couldn't wait for Yang Kai to die as soon as possible. He didn't hesitate and rushed forward with his sword in hand, looking fierce. The 2 of them, one on the left and one on the right, were as fast as the wind. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Yang Kai. After all, Nu Tao's strength was higher, so his movements were faster. The Yuan Qi on his fist surged and suddenly smashed towards Yang Kai's face. Initial Element Realm Level 5. His body had already gathered a lot of Yuan Qi, so at this time, the cultivator's fighting strength couldn't be underestimated. Nu Tao's fist had a faint whistling sound. It was obvious that he had used some kind of martial skill. Yang Kai didn't dodge. He also met the attack with a punch. Pang! Yang Kai's wrist emitted the sound of breaking bones. His clenched fist felt as if it had been cut by countless blades. In an instant, numerous wounds appeared on his palm, and his body involuntarily retreated a few steps. Nu Tao let out a strange cry. He felt that his fist had smashed into a red-hot iron. His skin and flesh were burning painfully. He shouted, What a hot Yuan Qi! With his initial element realm level 5 strength, he couldn't resist the invasion of a tempered body cultivator, Yuan Qi. This was really strange. The two of them fought for a while and then retreated. Qing Xiaofeng rushed forward with his sword. With a vengeful anger, he stabbed towards Yang Kai. He wanted to cut him down on the spot. After eating Nu Tao's fist, Yang Kai's blood began to boil again. A warm feeling quickly emerged from his bones, and after the warmth spread, it was as if he had an inexhaustible amount of strength. His eyes slowly turned scarlet, and his originally gentle face became ferocious and crazy. Facing Qing Xiaofeng's sword, Yang Kai grabbed it with one hand. Qing Xiaofeng sneered, "Last time I suffered at your hands. Do you think this young master will fall in the same place again?" As he spoke, his sword changed. It turned from a stab to a sweep. He wanted to cut off Yang Kai's fingers. Yang Kai's reaction wasn't slow either. Sensing the change in his opponent's sword, his fingers changed from a grab to a grab. Pooh! The long sword still cut Yang Kai's fingers. At this moment, Qing Xiaofeng's face bloomed with joy. Hu Mei air covered her mouth. She couldn't bear it. But when she thought of Yang Kai's attitude towards her, Hu Mei air felt that he should be cut into pieces. How is this possible? Qing Xiaofeng cried out in alarm. He found that his sword didn't cut off Yang Kai's fingers. After all, this was a sharp weapon. How strong could a mere tempered body cultivator's body be? Even if someone in the initial element stage was hit by this sword, they wouldn't be able to come out unscathed. Yang Kai grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Seeing his scarlet eyes, Qing Xiaofeng panicked. He hurriedly retreated while shouting, "Brother Nu, save me." Before he finished speaking, Yang Kai had already pounced forward. A drop of yang liquid in the dantian moved according to his will and condensed at the tip of his finger. He pointed his finger and hit Qing Xiaofeng's forehead. Qing Xiaofeng opened his mouth wide. His breathing suddenly stopped, and he fell on his back. On his forehead, there was a hole the size of a chopstick. It ran through his entire skull. The hole was smooth and flat, and there wasn't even a trace of blood flowing out. Qing Xiaofeng's eyes were wide open. He died with an expression of grievance. "Ah!" Two cries of alarm sounded at the same time. They were the voices of Nu Tao and Hu Mei air. Chapter 49. Qing Xiaofeng was dead. Without any warning, he died at the hands of Yang Kai. Last time, when Yang Kai fought with the disciples of Storm House, Hu Mei air also watched from beginning to end. Although she knew that Yang Kai's strength was amazing, she didn't expect him to be this strong. Qing Xiaofeng, who was at the first level of the initial element realm, was killed by Yang Kai with just one finger. What kind of martial skill was that? Why did it have such a strong power? The hole in Qing Xiaofeng's forehead was clearly burned by a kind of extreme yang energy. At this moment, Hu Mei air was panicking. After seeing Yang Kai's thunderous killing methods, she understood that Yang Kai wasn't joking. He really dared to kill, and he also had the ability to kill. Nu Tao was also extremely shocked. He had just exchanged a punch with Yang Kai, and before he could make a second move, his own junior brother had died in front of him. This unforeseen event really made him flabbergasted. "You actually killed junior brother Qing." Nu Tao screamed, "What kind of method did you use?" The power of that finger was too strong, it was definitely an incredible martial skill. Nu Tao was a little scared, afraid that he wouldn't be able to block it. "You also want to die." Yang Kai naturally understood the principle of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. These two people followed him here today to kill him. Facing such enemies, Yang Kai wouldn't be lenient. The situation this time was different from last time. Last time, it was only a group fight, so Yang Kai would still be lenient. But facing an enemy who wanted his life, it would be stupid to be lenient. Seeing Yang Kai hurriedly rushing towards him, Nu Tao suddenly laughed. "Stop bluffing, give me your life." As he shouted, he punched out with both fists towards Yang Kai. His opponent was only at the tempered body realm. How much yuan qi could he have? The power of that move just now was definitely not small. In other words, he wouldn't be able to use that kind of method again. That's why Nu Tao was so fearless. Who would have thought that after exchanging blows, Nu Tao would realize that he was wrong? This Yang Kai could actually use yuan qi. Every time he fought with him, he could feel a hot energy from his moves. This energy made Nu Tao suffer again and again. Although he had a higher realm than Yang Kai, he couldn't suppress him at all. Nu Tao used all of his tricks, moving left and right. He didn't dare to confront Yang Kai directly. He only wanted to fight a battle of attrition. When Yang Kai's yuan qi was completely depleted, his opponent would be a fish on the chopping board. Nu Tao's idea and strategy weren't wrong. To deal with ordinary body tempering stage disciples, this method was the most effective. It would definitely be able to take down the enemy with the least cost. But Yang Kai was different. He had just absorbed all the power of Yang Inflammation Stone from the Yang Inflammation Stone. His meridians were full of yuan qi. If he really continued to consume it, perhaps Nu Tao would be exhausted first. Very soon, Nu Tao realized that something was wrong. At the very beginning, Kai Yang's performance was indeed like that of a tempered body cultivator. Whether it was the speed or strength of his fists, although they were stronger than the average person, they still didn't exceed the limits of a tempered body cultivator. But with the passage of time, along with the various wounds he had inflicted on Kai Yang's body, this Kai Yang's strength was rising steadily. Each punch was faster than the previous one, and the strength behind each punch was also getting stronger and stronger. What made Nu Tao fearful the most was that the burning hot power contained within each of his moves was actually getting stronger and stronger. It was as if as time passed, this Yang Kai's strength was rapidly increasing. What was going on? When a cultivator fought, as the yuan qi in his body was depleted, his battle strength would only get lower and lower. How could this be reversed? In a short time, Nu Tao could no longer dodge Yang Kai's attacks. He couldn't dodge in time, and his chest was hit by Yang Kai's fist. The heavy force almost made Nu Tao breathless, and the hot energy that invaded his body was as fierce as fire. Looking at Yang Kai's red eyes, Nu Tao had the thought of retreating. After a feint, Nu Tao suddenly pulled back and quickly flew away. While gasping for breath, he shouted, "Yang Kai, you killed junior brother Qing, you're dead." Initial element stage 5th level, he couldn't beat the enemy, but if he wanted to escape, the enemy couldn't do anything. Nu Tao was very confident about this, because in the fight just now, he saw that Yang Kai didn't practice any body martial skill. If Nu Tao wanted to escape, Yang Kai couldn't stop him, and could only watch him flee more than 10 feet away. Suddenly, Yang Kai's heart moved, and the last drop of Yang liquid in the dantian flashed to his fingertip. Immediately, Yang Kai stretched out his other hand and pulled at his fingertip, and a shocking scene appeared. This drop of Yang liquid, in the blink of an eye, turned into a blood-red blade as thin as a cicada's wing. As soon as the blade was formed, it flew out under Yang Kai's control. With a "so" sound, a blood-red shadow cut through the air, and poured into Nu Tao's back. Nu Tao's running body suddenly stiffened, and with a thump, he fell to the ground. The dense forest was quiet, and occasionally the sound of insects and birds could be heard. Yang Kai was gasping for breath, and his whole body was battered and exhausted. Hu Mei Er's legs were trembling, and her whole body was ice cold, and her heart was cold. She didn't leave because she thought that when Yang Kai couldn't hold on, he would ask her for help. At that time, she would be able to achieve her goal. But what she didn't expect was that the two Stormhouse disciples who came to kill Yang Kai were actually killed by Yang Kai instead. These two people were both at the initial element stage, one at the first stage, and the other at the fifth stage. They joined hands to deal with the tempered body stage Yang Kai, and in the end, not only did they fail, they even lost their lives. Everything was so unreal, so inexplicable. Suddenly, Hu Mei Er's expression was startled. She found that Yang Kai had turned his head, and was staring at her with a gaze that seemed to want to eat her alive. Deep in his eyes, there was a glimmer of killing intent. Hu Mei Er subconsciously retreated a few steps. "If you dare to move, you will die." Yang Kai's cold voice sounded. "I won't move." Hu Mei Er's voice carried a bit of a sob, and her lower abdomen spasmed, almost causing her to lose her self-control on the spot. She was really frightened, and wasn't sure whether or not Yang Kai wanted to kill her. In a matter of life and death, what could a young girl like her do? Although she was successful in the field of love, her strength really wasn't high. Yang Kai didn't care about her anymore, and instead rushed to Qing Xiaofeng and Nu Tao's side, wantonly plundering their bodies. After a short while, Yang Kai found some silver and 2 bottles of pills. There weren't many pills left in the 2 bottles, but they were still worth some money. It wasn't a loss. But it was a pity that he didn't have the yang liquid he refined. Now, there was nothing left in the Dantian, and after the big battle, more than half of the true yang yuan qi in his meridians had been consumed. "Are you short on money?" Hu Mei Er saw that Yang Kai was robbing the 2 corpses, and couldn't help but muster up her courage to say, "I can give it to you, as long as you don't kill me." The current Hu Mei Er, how could she still dare to flirt in front of Yang Kai? Even her words were carefully spoken. Yang Kai looked at her indifferently. "I'm not a bandit, why would I need your money? If I lack money, I can earn it myself." Oh. Chapter 50. Hu Mei Er didn't dare to reply. She was afraid of angering Yang Kai if she spoke too much. "Come here." Yang Kai suddenly waved at her. Hu Mei Er's delicate body trembled, tears welling up in her eyes. She bit her lips and looked at Yang Kai pleadingly, but her feet didn't dare to move at all. "What are you afraid of?" "I'm telling you to come here, so come here." Yang Kai was a bit impatient. Helpless, Hu Mei Er could only walk towards Yang Kai. She slowly stopped 5 steps away from Yang Kai and looked at him with some fear. Sensing her fear, Yang Kai found it funny, but he still kept a straight face and said, "Be good, I won't touch you." There was an irresistible sense of dominance in his indifferent tone. Hu Mei Er nodded vigorously, "I'll be good." And Yang Kai was satisfied. He bent down and carried Nu Tao's body on his shoulder. He looked at Qing Xiaofeng's body and said, "Bring him along." Although it was disgusting, Hu Mei Er didn't dare to disobey. She squatted down and carried Qing Xiaofeng's body on her back. Although she was a young woman, she was still a cultivator. Carrying 100 or so pounds wasn't much of a burden to her. "Follow me." Yang Kai looked around and then walked deeper into Black Wind Forest. Hu Mei Er didn't know what he wanted to do, but she didn't dare to ask. She could only blindly follow. Yang Kai wanted to dispose of the bodies. Although the place just now was considered deep in the forest, he couldn't guarantee that there wouldn't be any men who would be interested and run there for a rendezvous. If someone saw it, it would be a troublesome matter. Although the probability of this happening was small, he had to guard against it. The cause of Qing Xiaofeng's and Nu Tao's deaths were very special. Both of them had their vital points pierced through by a scorching hot yuan li. If Stormhouse were to follow this trail and investigate, they might find out that it was him. So young Kai had to throw the bodies far away so that Stormhouse's people would never find them. The two of them walked one after the other into the depths of the forest. Hu Mei hesitated several times, but she endured it. More than 2 hours later, a lake suddenly appeared in front of them. Young Kai's eyes lit up. This was it. After telling Hu Mei to put down the corpses, young Kai went to find 2 large rocks and tied them to Qing Xiaofeng and Nu Tao's corpses before sinking them to the bottom of the lake. Clapping his hands, young Kai pondered for a moment and said, "You are now my accomplice. You should know what to do, right?" After saying that, he turned his head and looked at her indifferently. Hearing this, Hu Mei was not shocked, but rather delighted. She nodded repeatedly, "I know." For young Kai to say such words, it meant that he didn't have any malicious intentions towards her. Her life was saved. Hu Mei's body and mind relaxed, and she couldn't help but sigh in relief. Smart. A smart girl will always have someone who likes her. Young Kai laughed lightly. Speaking of which, young Kai really didn't know what to do with Hu Mei. If he didn't kill her, she would always be a hidden danger. She had seen everything that happened today. If he killed her, young Kai couldn't bring himself to do it. From beginning to end, Hu Mei didn't harm him. She only stood on the side and watched the show. Could it be that he killed her because of this reason? That was a little too unreasonable. After walking for so long, young Kai also thought it through. This time, it was Qing Xiaofeng and Nu Tao who took the initiative to provoke him. If he didn't kill them, would he just sit there and wait for death? So even if Hu Mei exposed this matter, young Kai wasn't afraid in the slightest. "You've killed many people?" Hu Mei's courage grew a lot as she looked at young Kai and asked. Young Kai shook his head, "This is my first time killing someone. But I saw that you were very experienced. When you killed them, you didn't even blink. It didn't seem like it was your first time." Hu Mei was puzzled. Hearing her words, young Kai's brows wrinkled. That's right, it was his first time killing someone. Why wasn't he afraid at all? Although he didn't feel any excitement, he definitely didn't feel any fear. At that time, he only cared about fighting. His mind was only filled with thoughts of killing them. Thinking about it now, he felt that it was quite inconceivable. It's up to you to believe it or not. Young Kai didn't explain further. After walking half a circle around the lake in front of them, young Kai came to a place far away from the corpses. Then, he stopped walking and dove into the lake. In this battle, young Kai's body also had many injuries. He had to wash up before going back. Hu Mei stood by the lake and waited. She also wanted to go in. If it was 2 hours ago, she would definitely go in and tease young Kai. Now, she didn't have the guts. When young Kai finished washing up, Hu Mei opened her mouth and said, "Wait for me for a while. I'll also go wash up." Just now, she had carried a corpse for such a long distance. Hu Mei felt uncomfortable all over. Women always loved cleanliness. Okay. Young Kai wrung out his clothes and then lay down on a rock by the lake to bask in the sun and recover his strength. Not daring to take off her clothes, Hu Mei scuttled into the lake. Her graceful body was like a fish swimming in the lake. From time to time, she would sneak a glance at young Kai, but found that he didn't even open his eyes. This made Hu Mei feel even more shocked. He wasn't the least bit moved. After a long while, Hu Mei finally finished washing up and came to the shore. Her clothes clung to her body, fully displaying her exquisite and enchanting figure. Without any hesitation, she came to young Kai's side. Her face was flushed red as she sat on the rock to bask in the sun. Kai Yang opened his eyes and sized her up, sweeping his eyes over her from top to bottom. Hu Mei lowered her head. Your figure is very good. Young Kai nodded slightly. Hu Mei bit her red lips and said with a bitter expression, actually, I have never done that kind of thing with a man. Even the one who has touched my body is only you. These past few years, the reason why I did that was because I wanted to recruit more talents for the sect and also to sow discord between High Heaven Pavilion and Storm House's disciples. Pestering you was also for this purpose. Hearing this, young Kai stared blankly at her and gave her a deep look. You don't believe me? Hu Mei's face flushed red. She had never told anyone about this secret. Everyone thought that she was really a promiscuous woman who was willing to have sex with anyone. On the surface, they called her Little Princess and Young Miss, but behind her they called her a slut. I believe you. Young Kai nodded, but what does that have to do with me? Hu Mei's expression darkened and she bitterly smiled. I won't pester you again in the future. This time's matter was a big blow to her. Hearing her say this, young Kai couldn't help but feel relieved. He had finally gotten rid of this trouble. After Hu Mei's clothes were dry, the two of them left the lake. In order to avoid attracting attention, young Kai and Hu Mei parted ways early on and returned to their respective sects. After returning to the wooden house to rest for a while, young Kai got up and went to the coiling dragon stream. This time's battle had completely exhausted his days of bitter cultivation. Naturally, he had to quickly replenish the true Yang Yuan Qi in his body. Otherwise, the next time he encountered something like this, he wouldn't be able to deal with it. Moreover, he had used the Yang liquid twice today. The results of the experiment made Yang Kai very excited. He really didn't expect the Yang liquid to be so strong. He was only at the tempered body 8th stage now. If his cultivation was higher, wouldn't the power of the Yang liquid become even stronger? No matter what the reason was, young Kai now had a kind of impatient desire to cultivate. Chapter 51. Arriving at the coiling dragon stream and sitting down, young Kai was preparing to begin his cultivation when he suddenly remembered something. Reaching into his bosom, he fumbled around for a moment before he took out a seed. This seed was the one that was given to him when he bought the Yang Inflammation Stone from the blood group stall. It was said to be the seed of a low-grade earth-level spirit fruit, the Three Suns fruit. Young Kai wanted to plant it. Although he didn't know how many years it would take to grow, it wouldn't take much effort. Moreover, this place was full of Yang Qi, so it was undoubtedly the most suitable place to plant this fruit tree. But as soon as he took out the seed, Yang Kai found that something was wrong. When he saw this seed during the day, it didn't have any abnormalities. There was only a weak Yang Qi inside, almost negligible. But now, this seed had turned red, crystal clear, just like a ruby. Holding it in his hand, Yang Kai could even feel the rhythmic movement of the seed. It was like a human's heart beating, surging with vitality. Moreover, at this moment, the Yang Qi inside the seed was many times larger than it was during the day. After staring at it for a moment, Yang Kai suddenly woke up. He suddenly understood where the drop of Yang liquid that disappeared from his dantian had gone. It was clearly absorbed by this seed. Otherwise, how could such an ordinary seed undergo such an earth-shattering change? A drop of Yang liquid, without the help of external objects, would take Yang Kai several days to condense. Yang Kai almost couldn't resist absorbing the Yang liquid from the seed. But after thinking about it, Yang Kai didn't do so. This seed clearly had a big change. If it was planted, what would it look like when it bloomed and bore fruit? The youth's curiosity and thirst for knowledge were incomparably strong. Compared to the precious drop of Yang liquid, Yang Kai wanted to see what would happen after the seed was planted. After carefully considering for a moment, Yang Kai began to move. First, he found a piece of soft soil nearby, carefully dug up the soil, and planted the seed. Then he went to find some water to water it. After finishing this, Yang Kai sat down and began to circulate the true Yang's secret art. He didn't know if the investment of a drop of Yang liquid would pay off. After so many days of bitter cultivation, the speed at which he absorbed Yang Qi was obviously faster. After a night of cultivation, the Yang Qi in his meridians was once again abundant. Yang Kai estimated that in another 2 to 3 days, he would be able to condense a drop of Yang liquid. Compared to the first time, the efficiency was much higher. The next morning, Yang Kai practiced the tempered body technique for an hour. He had never stopped practicing the body tempering technique for a single day. What he had to do every day, besides sweeping the floor, was to practice the body tempering technique. Then, he would find a junior brother to bully and earn some contribution points. The rest of the time, he would cultivate non-stop. An hour later, Yang Kai was done. He inadvertently glanced at the place where he had planted the 3 suns fruit seed last night. His expression couldn't help but freeze. On the soft ground, a 1-foot-tall sapling grew out of it. The sapling was slender, with a few fresh and tender leaves. On the small tree trunk, there were faint dark red lines intertwined. Although the sapling was small, it had a vitality that couldn't be ignored. It was struggling to break free from the shackles of the world and was growing strong. It can't be. Yang Kai felt that his brain wasn't enough. How did the 3 suns fruit tree grow so big in just one night? For a moment, Yang Kai even thought that he had lost track of time when he was cultivating, causing many days to pass. But after thinking about it carefully, this wasn't the case. The true Yang Yuan Qi in his body didn't increase by much. It was clear that it had only been one night. Could all of this be the result of the drop of Yang liquid that had seeped into the seed? It wasn't impossible. In the knowledge that Yang Kai had obtained, it only said that Yang liquid had endless uses, but it didn't say that it could only be used in battle. If it was the Yang liquid that caused the seed to change, then it could explain the scene in front of him. It grew a foot in one night. Could it be that in a few days it would blossom and bear fruit? Thinking up to this point, Kai Yang's heart became excited. The 3 suns fruit was an earth-grade low-level spirit fruit. The Yang energy contained within it was a great supplement to his true Yang tactics. A single fruit was definitely equivalent to several days' worth of cultivation. Thinking of this, Yang Kai suddenly felt that his investment was very wise. Now all he had to do was wait and see how many days it would take for this fruit tree to blossom and bear fruit. This place was next to the coiling dragon stream, so normally no one would come here. Yang Kai had been cultivating here for many days, and besides meeting the 11th elder, he hadn't seen anyone else, so he wasn't worried that this fruit tree would be discovered. Returning to the wooden house, Yang Kai wanted to finish today's work. But after searching for a long time, he still couldn't find the broom, so he couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. After waiting for a while, a high heaven pavilion disciple with a head full of sweat came over, carrying Yang Kai's broom in his hand. Yang Kai also knew this person. He was one of Sassafras's group, and his strength was only at the tempered body 5th stage. His name was Xingzhen. Seeing Yang Kai standing there, he quickly stepped forward. "Brother Yang, you're back. And where did junior brother Xing go? Why did you take away my broom?" He smiled and said, "I'm going to help you sweep the floor. Senior brother, you don't have to worry about these trivial matters in the future. Every day, one of us junior brothers will come and help you finish this work. You just have to focus on cultivating." "That's not appropriate." Yang Kai heard this and quickly waved his hand. Although sweeping the floor wasn't heavy work, it still took a lot of effort. If he didn't want to stay in High Heaven Pavilion, he would have already resigned from this job. But as a trial disciple, if he didn't take on some work, he wouldn't be able to stay in High Heaven Pavilion. He said, "Brother, we brothers should help each other. Last time, if you hadn't taught Qing Xiaofeng a lesson, the junior brothers wouldn't have been able to vent their anger. Moreover, we have a lot of people, so every day, one person will come and take turns. Each person only needs to sweep the floor 2 to 3 times a month. Brother, you don't need to get up early every day and waste your time. Brother, don't refuse. If you look up to the junior brothers, then let us help you. If you look down on us, then forget it." What could Kai Yang do now that things had come to this point? He quickly said, "Then I'll have to trouble you junior brothers. Junior brother Zheng, please come in and drink a cup of water." "No, young Master Su has given a strict order. Everyone needs to work hard. If anyone dares to slack off, then they are no longer brothers. I'm leaving, brother, you also need to work hard." Saying so, he put down the broom and trotted away. Looking at his back, Yang Kai's heart warmed. That day, saving Sassafras was the right decision. This person was a true villain. If you respect him, he will return you 10 feet. It seems that in the future, he won't have to worry about wasting time sweeping the floor. Happy, Yang Kai stepped out and casually grabbed a High Heaven Pavilion disciple who seemed to be at tempered body 7th or 8th stage. He cupped his fists and said, "Junior brother, please enlighten me." That person's face immediately became bitter. "Brother Yang. Of so many people, why did you choose me?" During this time, Yang Kai had been challenging one person every day and had already made a name for himself. Now, all of the High Heaven Pavilion disciples who were at the tempered body stage would feel a little scared whenever they saw Yang Kai. He was no longer the punching bag who lost every battle. Now, he had won many days in a row, and his victories were quite clean. Chapter 52. Looking at his junior brother's bitter face, Yang Kai smiled and said, "Don't be so nervous, I just want to earn a few contribution points. Don't worry, I'll be very gentle, I guarantee you won't feel any pain." After 10 breaths of time, this junior brother fell to the ground and Yang Kai walked away. Xia Ning Chang stood on the treetop and saw everything. Her eyes narrowed into crescents and a faint smile appeared on her face. Witnessing her junior brother, who had lost 147 consecutive matches, slowly grow stronger gave birth to a sense of accomplishment. Although Yang Kai's growth had nothing to do with her, after 2 years, Xia Ning Chang had become accustomed to secretly observing this junior brother. This was like a silent guardian. Yang Kai becoming stronger made Xia Ning Chang feel happy for no reason. Beside coiling Dragon Stream, Yang Kai was still cultivating. 5 days had passed since he planted the 3 suns fruit and the sapling had grown to a height of 1 zhang. There were big changes almost every day. At this time, the 3 suns fruit tree was swaying with the wind. 3 bright red flowers were blooming and it would probably bear fruit in a few days. At that time, Yang Kai would be able to eat to his heart's content. These past few days, Yang Kai's cultivation had been quite fruitful. He had condensed a drop of yang liquid in his dantian and his true yang tactics had become more and more refined. The daily task of sweeping the floor was taken over by someone else, so Yang Kai had a lot more time to cultivate. These past few days, Yang Kai had also been inquiring about Stormhouse's movements. After all, he had killed Qing Xiaofeng and New Tao, so it was difficult to guarantee that he wouldn't attract trouble. But what made Yang Kai feel relieved was that Stormhouse hadn't made any moves. It seemed that Hu Mei'er hadn't betrayed him. This woman was still trustworthy. The 8th day of the first month had arrived, and it was finally time to calculate the contribution points. On the 8th day of last month, he had just obtained the unyielding golden skeleton. At that time, he was only at the tempered body 3rd stage. In just a month, he had already reached the tempered body 8th stage. This kind of cultivation speed was unrivaled under the heavens. Even those so-called heavenly gifted geniuses, with the help of pills, would not be able to achieve this kind of speed. After entering the contribution hall, Treasurer Meng, who was sitting behind the counter, suddenly narrowed his eyes and looked at Yang Kai in amazement. He had not seen him for many days, but Yang Kai's strength had increased a lot. Treasurer Meng's surprise only lasted for a moment before he regained his composure. He wasn't an ignorant person, on the contrary, his vision far exceeded that of anyone in High Heaven Pavilion, so even though Yang Kai's strength had increased a lot, he wasn't surprised. He had seen many people who shone brightly in their youth, only to end up with nothing in the end. Treasurer Meng. Yang Kai greeted. You're here to trade. Old man Meng sized him up. And I have 59 contribution points this month, right? Sweeping the floor gave him 10 points, and defeating a person every day gave him 2 points. This month, there were 3 days when Yang Kai was not in the sect. In total, he had fought 27 battles, but last time when he was drinking with Sassafras in the sect, he was caught red-handed by a Dark Hall disciple, so 5 points were deducted. So in total, he had 59 contribution points. Not bad. What do you want to trade? 29 dead Jedi tree grass, 33 leaved chaos spirit flowers. The incense burner had not been used for many days because of the lack of materials. This thing had no use for cultivating Yuan Qi, but it had great benefits for tempering the body. Old man Meng looked at him with a profound expression before walking into the back hall. He then took out the things that Kai Yang needed and brought them out. Yang Kai was about to reach out to take them, but Treasurer Meng took them back and asked with a smile, "Little Yang Kai, can you tell me what you ate last time in Black Wind Mountain?" He was still interested in Yang Kai's fortuitous encounter. Yang Kai spouted nonsense. "I don't know, it was just a red fruit. I ate it when I was hungry." Red fruit, red fruit. Old man Meng fell into deep thought, but he could not think of a corresponding spirit fruit. After a while, Treasurer Meng shook his head. "Forget it, but you don't want to save up contribution points to exchange for my marrow cleansing pills." In the past, Yang Kai had to be very careful with every little bit of contribution points he spent, but now he was very generous. This month's contribution points had just entered his account, so it was not like him to spend them all. Yang Kai smiled. "I won't exchange them. Only by working hard can I become strong. I was too short-sighted to put my hopes on a pill." Hearing this, Treasurer Meng looked at him deeply and nodded with a smile. "Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect you to be able to see this clearly. Little Yang Kai, I'll give you a piece of advice." "Please speak, Treasurer Meng." "Work hard, don't waste your fortuitous encounter." Disciple understands. After leaving the contribution hall, Yang Kai ran towards the coiling dragon stream. After summoning the incense burner and throwing in the herbs, Yang Kai began to practice his fists and kicks at the coiling dragon stream. A familiar pressure followed, but this pressure was not something Yang Kai could withstand with his current strength. After a short while, he was already panting and exhausted, but he did not give up. Instead, he continued to practice, slowly opening his fists and kicks. Every movement was extremely difficult and obscure. His physical strength was like a flood leaking out of a dam, and his mind was also drowsy and exhausted. After a while, Yang Kai could no longer endure and fell to the ground. He forced himself to sit up and began to circulate the true Yang's secret art, recovering his physical strength and mental strength. Originally, Yang Kai thought that the incense burner had no effect on cultivating Yuan Qi, but now he found that he was wrong. Under the effect of the strange fragrance, the circulation of Yang Qi in his meridian seemed to be shackled. It was extremely slow, flowing inch by inch, making people feel helpless. The strange fragrance hindered the circulation of true Yang Yuan Qi, greatly reducing the efficiency of his current cultivation. Yang Kai was not in a hurry to take back the incense burner, but decided to feel it more. He felt that the incense burner did not only have the effect of tempering the body. This thing was incomparably wonderful, and was not something he could pry into at the moment. With the help of the incense burner, Yang Kai's body became stronger day by day, but the cultivation of the true Yang's secret art was delayed by a lot, and the speed of absorbing Yang Qi was greatly reduced. After 2 to 3 days of cultivation, the true Yang Yuan Qi in his body did not increase by much. Could it be that the incense burner only hindered the cultivation of Yuan Qi? After experimenting for 2 to 3 days, Yang Kai felt a little discouraged. If this was really the case, then the incense burner's value would be greatly reduced. Without any other choice, Yang Kai could only decide to take back the incense burner when he recovered, so as to avoid it affecting the circulation of Yuan Qi in his body and increasing the recovery time for no reason. After another round of exhaustion, Yang Kai put the incense burner into the wordless black book. Circulating the true Yang's secret art, Yang Kai's expression suddenly changed, and he carefully felt it. After a while, Yang Kai's mouth showed a trace of a smile. He found that the circulation of true Yang Yuan Qi in his body was slightly faster than it was 2 days ago. The faster the circulation of Yuan Qi, the faster the absorption of Yang Qi. If it was in battle, then the explosive power would be very strong. So it was like this. The existence of the incense burner, not only did it not hinder his cultivation of Yuan Qi, it actually gave him great benefits. The Yuan Qi in his body had adapted to the pressure brought by the strange fragrance, and without the strange fragrance, it would naturally circulate faster than before. It was like a person who had adapted to carrying a 3,000 gene stone, and suddenly changed the 3,000 gene stone into 300 gene stone, then he would definitely be able to walk as fast as flying. It was the same principle. Realizing this, Yang Kai smiled. Maybe in the short term, the incense burner would only hinder his cultivation of the true Yang's secret art, but in the long term, this obstruction could bring him great benefits and benefits. This was a business worth investing in. Chapter 53. 10 days after the seeds of the 3 suns fruit tree were planted, the 3 fruits had quietly ripened. They hung on the branches in bright red, making them very lovable. Yang Kai could feel a very rich Yang Qi from these 3 fruits. In just 10 days, this earth-grade low-rank spirit fruit had grown from nothing to a ripe melon. The effect of that single drop of Yang liquid was simply too great. Carefully reaching out, Yang Kai plucked the 3 fruits and played with them in his palm for a while. The more he looked at them, the more he liked them. But no matter how much he liked them, they still had to be eaten for them to be effective. Yang Kai did not hesitate and immediately sat down cross-legged and threw a 3 suns fruit into his mouth. The warm and sweet juice spread on the tip of his tongue, leaving a fragrance in his mouth. Once the spirit fruit entered his stomach, the true Yang tactics began to circulate. His abdomen felt like it was on fire, but for Yang Kai who practiced the true Yang tactics, this kind of temperature was the most comfortable and even made him feel very comfortable. The Yang Yuan Qi contained in the earth-grade mid-level spirit fruit quickly flowed into his meridians. His meridians were immediately saturated and with a light dripping sound, a drop of Yang liquid was quietly formed. A moment later, another light dripping sound was heard. Only after 3 drops of Yang liquid had been condensed did the earth-grade low-level spirit fruit's medicinal effect completely take effect. In the dantian, there were already 4 drops of Yang liquid. 3 of them were just formed and the remaining 1 was the result of Yang Kai's 10 days of cultivation. Because of the obstruction of the incense burner, the results of these 10 days of cultivation were rather bleak, but Yang Kai did not care. His eyes were set on the future. How could he care about such a small benefit in front of him? Moreover, Yang Kai had a faint premonition that if he ate the remaining 2 fruits, he might be able to break through to the tempered body stage 9th level and touch the threshold of the initial element stage. With this thought in mind, Yang Kai did not hesitate to throw the remaining 2-3 sun's fruits into his mouth. Yang Kai's qi dissolved in his abdomen, and a fierce burning force began to burn in his meridians. Yang Kai's skin suddenly turned red. The true Yang's secret art madly revolved, and with a dripping sound, the Yang liquid in the dantian increased drop by drop. The Yang qi that overflowed from the coiling dragon stream seeped into the Yang Kai's body through his pores, cooperating with him from the inside out. The vibration of the Yuan qi in his body was getting stronger and stronger. If a knowledgeable person were to see Yang Kai's current appearance, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop to the ground. There had never been a tempered body cultivator with such a dense Yuan qi in his body. A cultivator of the body-tempering realm had narrow meridians and a low capacity of dantian. They were unable to withstand such a huge amount of Yuan qi. Just the vibration of this Yuan qi was enough to match a cultivator of the initial element stage, but Yang Kai was only at the tempered body stage 8th level. At this moment, Yang Kai also felt a pressure. This pressure was indescribable, as if it existed between the heavens and earth. It was a shackle placed on his body, and if he did not break this shackle, he would not be able to break through. The burning hot true Yang Yuan qi began to revolve, burning this invisible shackle. As time passed, Yang Kai could feel this layer of obstruction slowly becoming thinner and thinner. The breakthrough was imminent. Yang Kai's mind was clear, and the true Yang's secret art revolved even faster. With a bang, it was as if he had broken free from a shackle. His entire body felt light, and all the pressure and discomfort disappeared. Yang Kai only felt refreshed. Tempered body stage 9th level. He stood outside the threshold of the initial element stage. Although he had broken through, the feeling from before had not disappeared. Yang Kai moved according to his will, and the 10 drops of Yang liquid stored in dantian began to revolve and spread out in all directions, penetrating into Yang Kai's 5 viscera, 6 bowels, blood, and meridians. The Yang inflammation in the Yang liquid was dissolved, burning the impurities in his body, and tempering his 5 viscera, 6 bowels, and meridians. Fine steel needed to be tempered thousands of times to form, and wasn't the human body the same? Therefore, every time a cultivator broke through a great realm, they would use the energy of heaven and earth to temper their body, and in this way, their strength would increase crazily. Yang Kai had only broken through a small realm this time, so there was no extra energy of heaven and earth to use, but the Yang liquid in his body had the same effect. After a long time, Yang Kai slowly opened his eyes. He could feel that this breakthrough had brought him great progress. Just in terms of strength, it was no longer comparable to before the breakthrough. If he met Qing Shaofeng and New Tao now, Yang Kai was confident that he could easily kill them without using the Yang liquid. In addition to the increase in strength, Yang Kai also faintly felt a trace of a concept when he broke through, but this thing was too mysterious, so he couldn't comprehend it now. He could only wait until he broke through in the future to feel it. His meridians were filled with true Yang Yuan qi, but the dantian was empty. Carefully feeling it, Yang Kai's face suddenly darkened. After so many days of hard work, it was all gone in an instant. The Yang liquid formed from the 3 sun's fruits, plus the drop of Yang liquid he had condensed before, a total of 10 drops. Now there was not a single drop left, all of it had seeped into his body when he broke through. Although the benefits to his body were enormous, the Yang liquid was gone. But it didn't matter, as long as he had money, it was very easy to obtain Yang liquid. He just had to buy some Yang attribute precious treasures and directly absorb them. The only problem now was that Yang Kai was very poor. Apart from the loot he obtained from killing Qing Shaofeng and New Tao, he didn't have anything else of value. Sitting in place and thinking, Yang Kai suddenly had an idea. He couldn't afford those precious treasures, but could he not buy seeds? The success of the Three Sons fruit tree was in front of him. With the extraordinary yang liquid, as long as he had the right seeds, he could easily obtain spirit fruits. But seeds were really rare. That day in Black Wind Trade, Kai Yang had wandered around for a long time, but he hadn't seen anyone selling seeds. This wasn't difficult to understand. To plant spirit grass and spirit tree seeds, not only did one need to find a suitable environment, one also needed to take care of them carefully, and it would take many years for them to bear fruit. Who would want to do that? If one had the time and energy, it would be better to cultivate. If no one wanted to buy, then no one would sell. If there was a demand, then there would be a market. Yang Kai said that he wanted to buy, and he wanted to buy a lot. Making up his mind, Yang Kai walked out of High Heaven Pavilion, all the way to Black Wind Trade. Although it was his second time here, Yang Kai seemed to be very familiar with the place. After more than half a month, the Black Wind Trade Market was still bustling with activity as usual. Cultivators came and went like carps crossing the river, innumerable. The stalls were filled with a dazzling array of rare treasures, making it too much for the eyes to take in. Walking around the lively stalls, he didn't find anyone selling seeds. Mentally prepared, Yang Kai wasn't disappointed. Following his memory, he went to the blood group stall. He wanted to see if that guy had any extra seeds. Chapter 54. After walking for a while, a surprised shout came from the side, "Brother Yang." Yang Kai looked over and saw Li Yuntian waving at him with a face full of enthusiasm. There was also a stall in front of him. There were all kinds of things, some herbs, and a few bottles. It looked like they were filled with pills. "Why are you setting up a stall here?" Yang Kai walked over and asked. He remembered that last time, Sassafras had given them a death order to cultivate. "I just broke through. Young Master Su told me to come out and relax and stabilize my realm. It just so happens that the brothers need some things to help with their cultivation, so I came here to try my luck." Li Yuntian explained. "So that's how it is." Carefully sizing up Li Yuntian, Kai Yang discovered that compared to a few days ago, he was much stronger. He should have broken through to the tempered body 8th stage. "Brother, what are you doing here?" Li Yuntian asked curiously. "I'm here to buy something." "What do you want?" "See if I have anything here. If you need it, just take it." Li Yuntian pointed at the things on the stall and said generously. "Do you have the seeds of Yang attribute spirit herbs?" Li Yuntian shook his head. "I don't have such things. As far as I know, there are very few people who sell seeds in this market. Generally speaking, seeds are not expensive, but they are still rare. I'm also here to try my luck." Yang Kai laughed. "How about this, I'll help brother put up a sign and see if I can get it. Since I'll be here for the next 2 days, if you're lucky, maybe someone will sell it." Li Yuntian suggested. "Alright, then I'll have to trouble junior brother Li." Li Yuntian picked up a sign and wrote a line of words, then put it on the side. After chatting with Li Yuntian for a while, he knew that Sassafras and the others had suffered a big blow last time. With Su Yan's harsh words, this dandy young master finally restrained himself. These days, he cultivated day and night and had already broken through to the initial element realm. After bidding farewell to Li Yuntian, Yang Kai went all the way to the stall where he had bought the Yang Inflammation Stone. After seeing the familiar stall owner, Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh in relief. He was really afraid that he wouldn't be able to find him. "Hey, little brother, you're here again." This disciple of the blood group had seen Yang Kai and Hu Mei air together before, so he naturally had a deep impression of them. At this moment, he even used honorifics. "What do you want to buy this time?" the stall owner asked. Do you still have the 3 suns fruit seed that you gave me last time? Yang Kai did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. The stall owner shook his head and said, "No, that's all I have. I've already given it to you as a bonus." "I see." Yang Kai couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "Then I'm sorry to disturb you." Finished speaking, Yang Kai walked to the side. He wanted to carefully look around the Black Wind trade market. With so many people selling things, if his luck was good, he should be able to find it. The blood group disciple looked at Yang Kai's back. He struggled for a moment, then suddenly shouted, "Little brother, please wait." Yang Kai turned his head and asked, "What's wrong?" In fact, the 3 suns fruit tree seed was not the only one. At that time, there were several seeds, but I only managed to get 1 seed. Listening to him, Yang Kai's expression was overjoyed. What about the other seeds? They were taken by several other people. If little brother really wants them, you can go find them. Where are they now? Yang Kai hurriedly asked. The stall owner looked hesitant. After a long while, he said, "They are in our group's mining area. They are mining the yang inflammation stone and other minerals. But that area, even our group's disciples can't easily enter, let alone little brother who is an outsider. When will they come out?" Yang Kai didn't want to give up. "I'm afraid they won't come out in a short time. If little brother wants to find them, you may have to wait 1 to 2 months. Yang Kai's eyebrows wrinkled. After such a long time, it would be too late to wait. "Do you have any way for me to go in and find them?" "Rest assured, I just want to buy the 3 suns fruit tree seed from them. I don't have a way. I'm just an ordinary member of the group." The stall owner shook his head with a wry smile. Then he rolled his eyes and said, "But someone has a way." Yang Kai was shocked. "I'd like to hear the details." The stall owner looked at him with a smile. His expression was somewhat ambiguous. "You can ask the little miss for help. With her leading you, the people in the mining area won't stop you." After listening to this, Yang Kai's face became strange. He said, "My relationship with your little miss is ordinary." N. The stall owner nodded again and again. It was obvious that he didn't believe Yang Kai's words. He pointed to a wooden house not far away and said, "Today is a coincidence. The little miss just happened to come to the trade market and is resting in that house. If you are in a hurry to get the seed, you might as well ask the little miss." Yang Kai was somewhat hesitant. Speaking of which, the matter between him and Hu Mei'er wasn't very pleasant. He had thoroughly offended this woman, and now he had to ask her for help. How could Yang Kai put down his face? But if he didn't ask her, then there was no other good way. Unwilling to give up, Yang Kai carefully searched the Black Wind trade market. Although he found some seeds, they weren't yang attribute and were of no value to him. In desperation, Yang Kai clenched his teeth. Forget it, if he lost face, then he lost face. In any case, he didn't do anything wrong to her. Why should he be afraid of her? The wooden houses here were basically guarded by the experts of the 3 sections. Hu Mei'er was the daughter of the blood group's leader. Although her strength wasn't high, her status wasn't low. It was normal for her to rest in there. There was no one within 300 feet of the wooden houses. All the cultivators were very respectful to the experts in the wooden houses. Naturally, they wouldn't set up their stalls near the wooden houses. Arriving at the wooden house indicated by the stall owner, Yang Kai stood in front of the door. He didn't know how to open his mouth, but suddenly a delicate voice came from inside the house, "Who's outside?" It sounded like Hu Mei'er's voice, but it was also strange. Since he had already come here, Yang Kai naturally wouldn't back out. He immediately said, "Miss Hu Mei'er, I am Yang Kai. I hope you can come out and meet me." Contrary to Yang Kai's expectations, there were two women sitting in the room at the moment. The two of them looked almost the same, even their demeanor and figure were the same. At first glance, one would think that there was a mirror here, and one of them was the reflection of the other. Hearing Yang Kai's voice, one of the women's beautiful eyes flashed with astonishment. Turning her head to look at the other woman, she said, "Little sister, is this the Yang Kai you were talking about?" The woman being asked was Humayer. Hearing the question, she nodded, and, "Why is he looking for me?" She thought that after that day, the two of them would never cross paths again. The other woman sneered, "It seems that he isn't the kind of man you were talking about who doesn't care about beauty. Some men, will pretend to be noble and virtuous. They will specifically lure a little girl like you into the trap. Then, they will seize the opportunity to capture your heart and soul, consigning you to eternal damnation." Humayer's face reddened. She angrily said, "Elder sister, he isn't what you think." Hu Jiao giggled, "If he isn't, why would he come looking for you after so many days? He must know that you can't forget about him. This time, he came to make his move." Humayer angrily said, "Elder sister, you always think the worst of people. If he really was that kind of person, then that day by the lake, Humayer believed that her chastity would have been at stake. No man could resist that kind of temptation." Chapter 55. But why did he come to look for her? Although Humayer didn't believe her sister's words, she still had some doubts in her heart. Seeing her expression, Hu Jiao faintly sighed, "If you persist in going about things the wrong way, you will suffer a big loss sooner or later." Humayer angrily said, "I won't talk to you anymore. He must have something important to tell me, I'm going to ask." Just as she was about to get up, she was held down by her sister. Hu Jiao's charming eyes turned and she giggled, "Little sister, how about I make a bet with you?" "What bet?" Humayer's expression was puzzled. "Let's bet on whether or not he's a hypocrite. If he's really like you say, then he'll definitely be able to sit still. If he's not, then don't blame sister for being ruthless." Hu Jiao said, her eyes flashing with a cold light. All these years, Humayer stirred up trouble outside, but the reason why she was able to maintain her purity was mostly due to this sister of hers. Those who had bad intentions and wanted to use force on Humayer always died without knowing why. Towards her sister's methods, Humayer was very clear. Just by looking at her expression, she knew that she was definitely up to no good. "Sister, what do you want to do?" Humayer exclaimed. "Just watch carefully, humph." Hu Jiao waved her hand and a dense light suddenly enveloped her sister's body. Soon after, Humayer's body gradually dimmed and finally disappeared. "Sister, don't mess around." Humayer used all her strength to beat the air, but not a single sound came out. She couldn't even walk out of the 1-foot radius around her feet. She could only look at everything in the room and couldn't help but become anxious. Outside the door, young Kai waited for a long time but didn't see Humayer open the door. He helplessly sighed. It seems that he really offended her that day, so it was natural for her to be angry. If it were any other woman, after being said those words, they probably wouldn't be able to remain calm. Forget it, young Kai originally didn't have any expectations. He only came here to try. Now that he saw that she wasn't willing to pay attention to him, he naturally couldn't force it. Just as he was about to turn and leave, Humayer's voice came from inside the room, "Come in." Yang Kai was stunned. After a moment of hesitation, he pushed the door open and walked in. After entering the house and closing the door, all the noise outside suddenly disappeared without a trace, leaving only a peaceful silence. Yang Kai looked around and found that the size of this wooden house was about the same as Su Yan's, but the furnishings inside were much better. Su Yan's house had nothing, it was just a simple wooden house, just as cold as her. But here, there was a table, 2 chairs, and even a fragrant bed. The fragrant bed was hung with a pink curtain that was as thin as a cicada's wings. There was also a small pillow on the bed, and the room was filled with the delicate fragrance of a girl. This place and Su Yan's world were 2 completely different worlds. Hu Jiao sat at the table with a charming smile, facing the direction Yang Kai came in. Her charming eyes were tender and beautiful, staring at him with a strange expression. The corner of her mouth held a trace of an unknown smile, and her cheeks were blushing. It was very charming. Her 2 jade-like arms were exposed, and her pink skin was as white and translucent as a baby's. She wore a pair of wooden clogs, and her small and exquisite toes were exposed. It was unknown what was applied on her toenails, but they were purplish-red in color, and it revealed a wild charm. Yang Kai looked at her and his heart jumped. He didn't know why, but Hu Mei seemed particularly charming today. Compared to the last time he saw her, she was much more charming. But her smile made Yang Kai feel awkward, thinking that the other party was ridiculing him. At this moment, Hu Mei's small and slender hand was holding a flat and round cloth fan, fanning herself in a graceful manner. Strands of her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind, adding a sense of indolence and nobility. The cloth fan's face was embroidered with a picture of a court lady. This court lady's figure was enchanting and full, posing in a seductive manner. If the clothes were less embroidered, it would be a set. Yang Kai glanced at it, thinking that this woman was really bold. If other women looked at it, they would be ashamed to death, but she dared to fan herself. She really wasn't an ordinary person. But, after not seeing her for half a month, how did Hu Mei change so much? Although she kept staring at him, Yang Kai didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. While walking towards her, his eyes met hers without the slightest thought of retreating. That day, he saw Hu Mei's embarrassing state with his own eyes. It was equivalent to holding her little braids. Now that he was facing her again, how could Yang Kai be timid? Being stared at like this, Hu Jiao, who was pretending to be Hu Mei, felt a little overwhelmed. She thought that this person was really daring. Who would look at a beauty like this? He didn't know how to avoid her, he really didn't understand the situation. But, his eyes were clear, without the slightest trace of obscenity. Arriving at the table, Yang Kai cupped his fist and said, "Miss Mei, after not seeing you for 10 days, you have become more and more charming." Hearing this, Hu Jiao giggled and said, "You also know how to flatter people?" With regards to Yang Kai, Hu Mei had told her everything, so Hu Jiao knew how to respond and wasn't worried that she would give herself away. Yang Kai smiled, "I'm just speaking the truth." As he said this, he sat across from her. His heart was relieved. It seemed that this woman wasn't angry with him. This made things much easier. "Miss Mei, this time I came." Yang Kai planned to directly state his purpose. This way, he would appear more sincere. "Let's not talk about this first." Hu Jiao put down her cloth fan. She stood up and picked up the teapot on the table. Walking to Yang Kai's side, she poured him a cup and said, "It's hot outside. Drink some tea to moisten your throat. It won't be too late to talk after a while." "That's fine too." Yang Kai nodded. Enjoying the other's warmth, he picked up the teacup and took a sip. Suddenly, his expression became a little strange. Hu Jiao returned to her seat and sat down. Holding her cheeks with both hands, she calmly looked at him and said, "Junior brother Yang, what do you think of this tea?" Yang Kai's mind was thinking about other things. He raised his eyes and looked at Hu Jiao meaningfully, then said, "The leaves of this tea are flat like a palm, slender and straight. The color is like a drop of jade, and the bottom of the leaves is dense with flowers. It is a top-quality product. Hu Jiao was stunned. Full of surprise, she looked at Yang Kai and asked, "You know?" Even she didn't know, she just drank it. She didn't think that Yang Kai would be able to explain it so clearly. How could she not be surprised? Yang Kai shook his head. "I know a little, not proficient." "Then what do you think of this tea compared to mine?" Hu Jiao looked at Yang Kai, her breath like orchids. Even though they were separated by a table, Yang Kai could feel the other's breath. It was as sweet as a mountain stream, as clear as 100-year-old wine, leaving a rich aftertaste. Without any reason, Yang Kai suddenly felt his breath quicken. His blood slowly surged, and he almost blurted out, "The tea is better for a good person." Hee hee. Hu Jiao giggled, her chest trembling. Yang Kai's eyes stared at those huge full breasts. His Adam's apple couldn't help but move. Hu Jiao intentionally or unintentionally picked up the cloth fan, blocking the spring scenery in front of her chest. However, she deliberately turned the picture of the scantily clad lady towards him. Yang Kai's face suddenly turned red. Chapter 56. Seeing this scene, the imprisoned Hu Mei immediately shouted, "Elder sister, you're shameless." But how could her cries be heard? She was so anxious that her fragrant sweat was dripping, but there was nothing she could do. This was too despicable. With her elder sister's strength, it was easy for her to toy with a tempered body cultivator. If it was a normal conversation, Hu Mei felt that Yang Kai would definitely not reveal any embarrassment. But if her elder sister secretly used some tricks, then it was hard to say. Inside the room, Hu Jiao suddenly stood up and walked step by step towards the fragrant bed. Looking back, she smiled and said, "Wait a moment, I'll get something for you." "Okay." Yang Kai frowned. He faintly felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong. Walking to the side of the fragrant bed, Hu Jiao bent down and half knelt on the bed to search. Her thin clothes couldn't hide her 10,000 kinds of flirtatious feelings. The clothes that clung to her body wrapped around her perfectly round and perky buttocks, displaying an incomparable temptation. Yang Kai's heartbeat sped up a lot, and his throat burned. For a long time, Hu Jiao still maintained this seductive posture. Suddenly, a delicate cry came from her mouth. "What's wrong?" Yang Kai's expression changed, and he hurriedly rushed forward. At this time, Hu Jiao retreated from the bed. Her footsteps staggered, and she directly fell into Yang Kai's arms, hugging him tightly. The two people's feet bumped into each other, and for some reason, they both fell on the bed. Hu Jiao was on top, and Yang Kai was on the bottom. Her hot and delicate body was in his arms. Yang Kai's throat became more and more dry. Looking at the beautiful face and tender lips in front of him, Yang Kai suppressed the desire in his heart and opened his mouth to ask, "What's wrong?" "There's a bug." Hu Jiao's acting was quite good. Her two small hands grabbed onto Yang Kai's clothes and didn't let go, looking like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. Yang Kai laughed involuntarily. "Where?" There, following the direction Hu Jiao pointed, Yang Kai saw a worm slowly crawling there. He thought to himself, "This woman is really interesting. She's already a cultivator, yet a mere worm can scare her like this." He reached out his hand and pinched it to death. Then, he patted Hu Jiao's shoulder and said, "It's okay, I've already killed it. There must be more." Hu Jiao continued to speak as she turned her head to look around. Strands of her hair swept across Yang Kai's cheeks and mouth. Yang Kai's mood, which had just calmed down, was once again aroused. No more. Yang Kai felt that this wasn't a good idea. If someone were to barge in and see him and Hu Mei in this state, then they wouldn't be able to clear their name. Is there really nothing else? Hu Jiao Er's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. She didn't think that Yang Kai would actually be able to sit still and not take advantage of her. Just now, if Yang Kai really did make a move, then the result would definitely be a broken arm or a broken leg. Although her heart was unhappy, Hu Jiao Er didn't insist. Instead, she meekly climbed up from Yang Kai's body. Yang Kai also sat up. He somewhat embarrassedly raised his head to look at Hu Mei. He discovered that the other party's face was also red as she limped to sit beside him. "What's wrong with your foot?" Yang Kai asked. "When I fell just now, I think I sprained it." Hu Jiao Er's first plan didn't work, so she came up with another one. She thought to herself, "I'll make a sacrifice today and dig out your heart to see if it's black or red. Let me see." Yang Kai squatted down and picked up Hu Jiao Er's foot to examine it. He discovered that her ankle was indeed a bit red and swollen. It was clearly a sprain. But it wasn't a real injury. In order to test Yang Kai, Hu Jiao Er sacrificed a lot this time. Yang Kai didn't avoid anything. After all, Hu Mei wasn't someone who cared too much about etiquette. Before, she had seduced him, so what if he took her foot now? "Don't move," Yang Kai warned. Then, he reached into his bosom and took out a bottle of pills. This was a bottle of Sky Tower's blood coagulation cream. After taking it out, Yang Kai's movements paused, as if he was thinking about something. After a while, he opened the bottle and poured out some of the cream. Spreading it out in his palm, he carefully applied it to the red and swollen area of Hu Jiao Er's foot. The weak true Yang Yuan Qi was also circulating, helping to dissolve the effects of the medicine. Hu Jiao Er couldn't help but tremble. She secretly thought that this time, she really suffered a big loss. For so many years, her pure and clean body had never been touched by anyone. Today, in order to make a bet with her little sister, she had been hugged and touched by someone. Unfortunately, she couldn't get angry, and she couldn't let the other party take responsibility. Although she felt wronged in her heart, her body had a different feeling. That big hand gently rubbed her ankle. His expression was serious, and his movements were gentle. His rough hand rubbed against her tender skin, bringing a burst of numbness. When he was serious, he seemed to have a kind of calmness that didn't match his age. Following Yang Kai's movements, Hu Jiao Er's wild thoughts were gradually interrupted. Her body constantly surged with a strange feeling. This feeling made her flustered. Her maiden heart suddenly began to beat wildly. Her lower abdomen also had a hot current, like lightning, jumping up and down. She couldn't help but clamp her legs together. She was afraid that if she didn't clamp her legs together, that hot current would rush out. "Yang Kai." A strange voice came out from Hu Jiao Er's mouth. At this moment, she was so embarrassed that she couldn't show her face. She never thought that she would one day make such a sound. "N." Yang Kai raised his head and saw Hu Jiao Er's pair of watery eyes staring at him. There was no other color on her face, only a red flush. "Do you want to do something else?" Hu Jiao Er bit her ruby red lips and made a final counterattack. If Yang Kai agreed, she could abandon all of her current feelings and completely withdraw. Moreover, she wouldn't let Yang Kai have an easy time. Would he agree? Hu Jiao Er was nervous. She hoped that he would agree and release her, but she also hoped that he would refuse. This proved that her little sister didn't make a mistake, and she also didn't make a mistake. This kind of tension and struggle made her heart very hesitant. Hu Jiao Er was worried, but how could the imprisoned Hu Mei not be worried? At this moment, she also stopped her useless shouts and stared closely at Yang Kai. She didn't know what kind of answer he would give. Kai Yang stared straight at Hu Jiao Er, seemingly interested in her. Hu Jiao Er's heart leapt to her throat, afraid that Kai Yang would say, yes. Suddenly, Kai Yang smiled faintly and slowly put away the blood-clotting cream. Solemnly, he put it into his pocket. Miss. Yang Kai muttered. N. Hu Jiao Er was so nervous that she didn't notice the change in the way Yang Kai addressed her. The blood coagulation cream that I just gave you is one of my most precious things. Although its value is not high, it is a testimony to the warmth I have felt in these past few years. What do you mean? Hu Jiao Er was stunned. She asked him whether he wanted it or not. Why did he say this to her? What was the deeper meaning? Yang Kai straightened up and looked down at Hu Jiao Er. I wanted to tell you that I used this precious ointment to heal your wounds. I hope you won't mind my previous offense. This farce ends here. Chapter 57. What are you talking about? Hu Jiao Er's expression changed as she forced a smile. I don't understand. Could it be that he found out that she wasn't her sister? Impossible, he was clearly only at the 9th level of the tempered body stage. How could he see through her, a dignified Yuan Qi cultivator's trick? What's more, she and her sister looked the same, no matter if it was their voice or form, there was no difference. The elders in the sect often mistook their identities, so how could he have this ability? Yang Kai looked at her indifferently and chuckled. Miss, are you saying that you don't want to admit it? Admit what? I really don't know what you're talking about. Hu Jiao Er made a final effort. Yang Kai rubbed his forehead and said helplessly, then I'll make it clear. Miss, you're not Hu Mei Er, I think, you should be her twin sister. Hu Jiao Er was stunned and immediately laughed. Why do you say that? This time, she didn't try to deny it. Instead, she looked at Kai Yang with great interest. She also wanted to know where she had exposed herself. If Kai Yang couldn't tell her the truth, then it was clear that he was just using words to trick her. Maybe he was just suspicious and didn't dare to be sure, so he wanted her to admit it. Hu Jiao Er guessed in her heart. Miss, you're testing my eyesight. Yang Kai wasn't angry and chuckled. He turned and walked to the table and picked up the teacup he was drinking from. He took a sip and said, actually, I wasn't sure if you were Hu Mei Er, but now I can be sure, you're not her. Hu Jiao Er was stunned, but she gnashed her teeth in hatred. So what he said just now was really just a test. I'm so angry. I'm an Yuan Qi cultivator, but I was careless and fell for a tempered body stage brat's trick. This is really capsizing and losing face. There was no point in continuing to deny it, so Hu Jiao Er giggled and sat sideways on the bed, her enchanting figure faintly discernible. Looking at Yang Kai with her beautiful eyes, she asked in a soft voice, when did you start suspecting me? When we drink tea. Yang Kai knocked on the teacup in his hand. Although the tea is pleasant, it can't cover up the woman's fragrance on the cup. And there's a faint lipstick mark on the rim of the cup. I think this teacup was used not long ago, right? And that person is Miss Hu Mei Er. Just based on this, you think I'm not Mei Er? Hu Jiao Er was stunned. Of course not. Yang Kai shook his head slowly. The second thing that made me suspicious was your temperament. I don't think it's possible for a woman's temperament to change so drastically in just a few days. To give you a compliment, Miss Mei Er's charm is slightly immature, but your charm is completely natural. I like those words. Hu Jiao Er covered her mouth and giggled. Continue, is there anything else? Thirdly, your body fragrance is extremely similar to Miss Mei Er's. However, if you carefully taste it, there are some differences. Her fragrance is sweet, while yours is slightly more elegant. Stinking brat. Hu Jiao Er's face turned pink. Yang Kai's explicit words made it difficult for her to control herself. Thinking of the sacrifice she made to test him, Hu Jiao couldn't help but want to slap this man in front of her into a meat patty. Fourthly, Yang Kai ignored Hu Jiao's murderous gaze and continued. There's more. Hu Jiao was shocked. She didn't think that this stinking brat, who was only a tempered body cultivator, would be able to see through so many flaws. Originally, she thought that her plan was flawless. Fourthly, the injury on your foot. That injury looks like a sprain, but in fact, it's caused by the internal shock from your own cultivation. This is the biggest mistake. Although Miss Mayer is a young girl, she is still a cultivator. How could it be so easy for her to sprain her own foot? That was my oversight. Hu Jiao nodded lightly. At that time, she was only thinking about how to trick Yang Kai, but didn't think so far ahead. Raising her head, she saw that Yang Kai was still deep in thought. Hu Jiao couldn't help but say, "Don't tell me that you still saw through my plan." Hu Jiao was not convinced. How could a plan that she thought was perfect be full of flaws when it came to him? His analysis was clear and logical, making it impossible for others to refute. This stinking brat is really annoying. If he dares to say that there are any flaws, this great aunt will definitely teach him a lesson. He doesn't know how to look at other people's faces. Then don't say it. Yang Kai frowned. Hearing him say this, Hu Jiao was not happy. Her beautiful eyes were cold, and she smiled sweetly. Clenching her teeth, she said, "Say it." "I won't say it." Yang Kai shook his head. Hu Jiao said angrily, "I told you to say it, so just say it. How can you keep people in suspense like this?" Yang Kai smiled bitterly, "I'm afraid that if I say it, it will make you angry." Hu Jiao's phoenix eyes narrowed. "Make me angry? Then it must be something bad. And then all the more I want to hear it. But you have to promise that you won't be angry. If you don't say it, how will I know if I won't be angry? Then forget about it. Don't you know that when you have a dispute with a woman, you should take a step back?" Hu Jiao was full of hatred. This brat looked smart, but in fact, he was a hothead. "If I take a step back, I will be hurt. I think I can't beat you," Yang Kai said seriously. "At least you are a little tactful." Hu Jiao smiled proudly. Her body rolled up like a gust of wind. She walked from the bed to the table and sat down. Looking at Yang Kai, she pondered for a moment and said, "Okay, I promise I won't be angry with you. And promise you won't hit me." "Okay." Hu Jiao gritted her teeth and said, "Tell me, what is the last flaw?" Yang Kai said seriously, "Actually, it's not a flaw. It's just that you and Mei look different." "What's the difference?" Hu Jiao asked curiously. She and her little sister were carved from the same mold. How could there be any difference? Yang Kai smacked his lips and hesitated for a long time. Then he said, "Your butt, one side is big and the other is small. It's not as well proportioned as Mei's." When this sentence came out, Hu Jiao's face turned red. Her yuan qi fiercely erupted, and the room was suddenly filled with a whistling wind. "Remember the promise you just made." Yang Kai's expression didn't change and his heart didn't skip a beat, lightly reminding him. Hu Jiao's astonishing aura suddenly shrank. She was so angry that her whole body trembled, but she couldn't do anything. She clenched her teeth so hard that they almost broke. After a long time, she angrily slammed the table and shouted, "Bullshit." For a girl to burst out with such vulgar words, one could imagine how angry Hu Jiao was. This stinking brat should be hacked into pieces. He actually said that one side of her butt was big and the other side was small. Was this something a man should say? How was one side big and one side small? It was clearly very well proportioned, okay? Stinking brat, I'm afraid you don't know how to write the word death. Chapter 58. Knowing that Hu Jiao Air was angry, Yang Kai quickly comforted her. Miss, you don't have to worry about it. In fact, if you didn't look carefully, you wouldn't be able to see it. Hu Jiao Air's face turned cold as she looked at Yang Kai with a murderous look. In other words, you just looked carefully. Yang Kai couldn't help but cough a few times and said with some embarrassment, yes, I looked a few more times. You can't blame me. You were the one who stuck out your butt towards me. Do you think I didn't see it? Yang Kai felt wronged in his heart. With these doubts, if I still couldn't see that Miss and Hu Mei were two different people, then I would have wasted my pair of eyes. Yang Kai smiled faintly. After Hu Jiao Air's anger, she carefully thought about it and couldn't help but be shocked. She found that this man named Yang Kai had unparalleled insight. From entering the room to exposing her, it only took half a cup of tea's time for him to see so many suspicious points. This kind of ability wasn't something that everyone had. Moreover, she had personally tried to seduce him, but he didn't succeed. This person's willpower and character were also quite good. He wouldn't be moved by beauty, he was a man with a strong heart. A person. Although he was young and his strength was weak, it couldn't be denied that he was a person. Thinking of this, Hu Jiao Air rolled her eyes and winked at Yang Kai. Yang Kai, right? In view of the fact that you just offended me, now this miss will give you two choices. What choices? Yang Kai asked. The first choice, whichever hand that touched me, that hand will be cut off. Whichever eye that looked at me, that eye will be gouged out. If so, I will forgive you for your previous offense. Hu Jiao Air said these words with a smile on her face. Her tone was gentle as if she was a wife whispering to her husband, but there was an inhumane cruelty and bloodthirstiness in her words. Yang Kai shook his head. I'll listen to the second choice. Smart. Hu Jiao Air smiled. The second option is to leave High Heaven Pavilion and join my blood group. I will report to my father and let him give you the position of squad leader. As far as I know, in High Heaven Pavilion, you're just a trial disciple of the lowest level, bullied and humiliated, and you don't have any good cultivation resources. But if you come to blood group, you'll be treated 100 times better than in High Heaven Pavilion. How about it? Aren't my conditions generous? Is there any other choice? No more. Then I won't choose any of them. Yang Kai secretly circulated his true Yang secret art as he vigilantly looked at Hu Jiao Air. You want to force me to make a move? Hu Jiao Air sneered. I don't think the young lady will really fight. This is not the blood group. Once the slightest trace of a battle is spread out, the High Heaven Pavilion's disciples will also come to investigate. At that time the young lady will also be in trouble. A trivial trial disciple, if I kill him, then I kill him. What can High Heaven Pavilion do to me? At most, I'll just go with some things. I'm sure they won't care if you live or die. If the young lady really wanted to kill me, then you wouldn't have talked so much nonsense with me. Yang Kai looked calm and composed, but in fact, he was nervous. After all, a woman's heart was like a needle in the ocean, who knows what she was thinking in the end. He now regretted speaking the truth. A woman's words really couldn't be trusted, especially a beautiful woman. His experience was still too little. Moreover, I have already said that I will use my most precious blood coagulation cream to heal your wounds, so please don't mind me offending you again. Kai Yang tried to persuade her with reason and with emotion. A bottle of blood coagulation cream is enough to compensate for my loss. You, to me. Hu Jiao was angry. She wanted to say that he had already hugged her, touched her, but when the words reached her mouth, she couldn't say it. Her loss was too big. How could a bottle of medicine make up for it? If you want to say it like that, then I can't do anything. In fact, you know what happened just now, you were the one who took the initiative. These words were like adding oil to the fire. Hu Jiao was ashamed and angry. Just as she was about to hit him, she turned her head and looked at the place where Hu Mei was imprisoned. Seeing Hu Mei anxiously shouting from inside, she couldn't help but soften. Her anger gradually dissipated. Taking a deep breath, she said, "Forget it, this time I won't argue with you." Yang Kai couldn't help but let out a long breath. "Young lady, please forgive me." Hu Jiao chuckled. "Actually, what you just said was correct, but you were wrong about one thing." "What is it?" Yang Kai asked. Hu Jiao didn't immediately answer. Instead, she waved her hand and the imprisoned Hu Mei gradually appeared. Yang Kai was shocked. Although he knew that this woman's strength was very high, he didn't expect it to be to this extent. With a wave of her hand, a person quietly appeared. This was clearly something that an expert of Yuan Qi realm or higher could do. Hu Mei was freed. Her beautiful eyes glanced at Yang Kai and her face relaxed. Just now, she was really nervous to death. She was afraid that her sister would kill Yang Kai in a fit of anger. Looking at her sister again, Hu Mei couldn't help but laugh. She remembered the words that Yang Kai just said. Heavens, there was actually a man in this world who dared to say such things to her sister. Moreover, after saying it, he was actually unharmed. Sister. As soon as Hu Mei came out, she threw herself at Hu Jiao's side and acted like a spoiled child. Don't be angry, this time you can't blame him. I didn't say that I blame him. Hu Jiao was still angry. She turned her head and looked at Yang Kai. I said that you were wrong about one thing, and that is that Hu Mei and I are not twins. Not twins. Yang Kai was surprised. Looking carefully, the two women in front of him were exactly the same. There was no difference. If Yang Kai were to identify them the next time they met, he definitely wouldn't be able to tell who was who. No, I am a few years older than Hu Mei. Hu Jiao smiled slightly. Seeing Yang Kai's surprised expression, she couldn't help but feel a little better. Sure enough, this is a boundless world, nothing is too strange. Yang Kai sighed. Although they were sisters, they were born a few years apart and yet they could grow up to such an extent. In this world, they were probably the only ones. You don't know me. Hu Jiao was slightly puzzled. She was one of the younger generation of the blood group. Her reputation was illustrious, how could this person not know her? I don't know. Yang Kai shook his head. He seemed to be very ignorant and inexperienced. Seeing that he didn't seem to be lying, Hu Jiao could only believe him. Naturally, she didn't know what Yang Kai had been through these past few years. He was practically isolated from the world and never communicated with others. Why are you looking for me today? Hu Mei turned her head and looked at Yang Kai. Yang Kai told her the purpose of this trip. Hu Mei looked at her sister and asked for her opinion. The latter waved her hand and said, Go, but don't cause trouble in the mine. Thank you. Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh in relief. Let's go, I will take you there. The mine is not very far from here. Hu Mei seemed to be in a good mood. Her face was radiant as she led the way. After Yang Kai and Hu Mei left, Hu Jiao slowly got up. Her two jade hands stroked her round buttocks. After a while, she muttered to herself, How is one side bigger and one side smaller? They are clearly the same. This stinking brat is spouting nonsense. He's too despicable, oh. Chapter 59. Leaving the bustling Black Wind trade, under Hu Mei-er's lead, the two of them headed north of Black Wind Forest. Hu Mei-er seemed to be somewhat happy, her pair of charming eyes filled with joy, her cheeks flushed red. About that day, I'm sorry. Yang Kai suddenly apologized. The words he said that day were indeed a bit too much, and now he came to ask for help. It was a bit of a double-edged sword. Hu Mei-er pursed her lips and smiled. It's okay, you didn't scold me. These past few years, I've heard worse words, but didn't I still survive? You don't hate me. Yang Kai was surprised. Why would I hate you? Hu Mei-er smiled and suddenly said, actually, I did hate you, but one of your actions made me unable to hate you. What actions? That day when Qing Xiaofeng and Nu Tao suddenly appeared, you stood in front of me. Maybe it was an unconscious action, but it was the first time in these past few years that someone sincerely wanted to protect me. I don't remember. But it wasn't easy for you. Yang Kai sighed. A good girl actually willingly destroyed her own reputation just to help the blood group find more men. Although her intentions were not good, it was still a filial piety. Ha! Hu Mei-er laughed. It wasn't easy, don't you know that acting is a woman's instinct? I haven't had much contact with women. Really? Hu Mei-er's eyes lit up. And, so these past few days I've been taken advantage of by you two sisters. Yang Kai said in a deadpan manner. Hu Mei-er glanced at him angrily. You're so mean. Luckily my sister wasn't here. If she was, I'll definitely beat you up. Your sister? Yuan Qi Realm First Level. Hu Mei-er replied with some pride. Amazing. Yang Kai praised. Su Yan was Yuan Qi Realm Third Level. Hu Mei-er's sister was a bit weaker than Su Yan, but not by much. When Hu Mei-er mentioned her older sister, she remembered what Yang Kai had said. For a moment, she was convulsing with laughter, unable to close her mouth. Yang Kai was speechless. He could only stand there and wait for her to catch her breath. After laughing for a long while, Hu Mei-er gradually regained her breath. With a smile on her face, she said, I've discovered that you're quite daring. There has never been a man who dared to say that to Big Sister. That part of her, is it true that one side is bigger than the other? Maybe it's because of the clothes she's wearing. Tell her not to worry about it later. Yang Kai chuckled. What about mine? Are they really well proportioned? Hu Mei-er's face was bashful as she boldly asked. Not only is it well proportioned, but it's also round and perky. Yang Kai nodded. You have a good figure, so you don't have to undervalue yourself. Hu Mei-er immediately felt a little overwhelmed. This kind of straightforward praise without any ulterior motives was probably the best thing she had heard in all these years. For a moment, he was secretly delighted. How long before we arrive? Yang Kai didn't want to delve into this topic, so he opened his mouth and asked. We still have to walk for an hour. Although that place can be considered as Black Wind Forest, it is already the center of Black Wind Forest. Hu Mei-er explained, there is an underground mineral vein that was discovered by our blood group a few years ago. Since then, we have stationed people there to mine it. The things produced there are very strange. How strange? Yang Kai asked. There are only two types of stones there. One is the Yang Inflammation Stone that you bought, and the other is the Yin Yuan Stone. Don't you think it's strange? These two types of stones are opposite to each other, but they can be produced together in that mineral vein. I don't know what is going on. This is really strange. Yang Kai was slightly moved. The Yang Inflammation Stone contains Yang energy, while the Yin Yuan Stone contains Yin energy. They are opposite attributes. Under normal circumstances, it is absolutely impossible for them to be produced together. The experts of the gang also feel that there is something wrong with the mine, but after investigating and mining for several years, they didn't find anything special. However, because of this mine, our gang has earned a lot of money. Hu Mei didn't seem to treat Yang Kai as an outsider, so she said what she thought. This is your blood group's good fortune. Yang Kai smiled slightly. Hu Mei hummed and suddenly became silent. After walking for a while, she opened her mouth and said, "Actually, today can be considered a coincidence. If you missed today, even if you wanted to find me, you wouldn't be able to find me. This is also your good fortune. Where are you going?" Yang Kai understood the meaning behind her words. "I'm not going anywhere." Hu Mei shook her head. While explaining, she secretly looked at Yang Kai's expression. "After being lectured by you last time, I suddenly felt that my methods these past few years were wrong. Relying on those despicable methods to win people over, they don't care about blood group, but me. I can't give them what they want, so naturally they won't really work for the gang. Therefore, I decided to go into seclusion to cultivate. When I am strong, I can also share the burden of father, just like sister. You can think like this, it is a good thing." Yang Kai nodded. Hu Mei's expression couldn't help but be disappointed. She found that Yang Kai's expression was very calm from beginning to end, and didn't have any mood swings because of her words. Feeling slightly bitter, Hu Mei didn't have the mood to talk, and only continued to lead the way. Since she didn't speak, Yang Kai naturally wouldn't say anything. After walking for more than an hour, the two of them arrived at the blood group's mine. This was the center of Black Wind Forest, and in front of them was the blood group's mine. On the ground, there were some houses for the disciples to live and rest. Because the ore vein was underground, when Yang Kai and Hu Mei arrived, they didn't see the mine as lively. Only the ground had a large hole that led directly to the ground. Even from 1,000 feet away, Kai Yang could feel the Yang origin seal on his chest giving off a strong reaction. It was the reaction of the underground bright Yang stone. With the growth of his strength, the range of Yang Qi that the Yang Inflammation Stone could sense also increased, but the increase was not too much. The arrival of the two of them attracted the attention of the blood group's disciples on the ground. An old man suddenly descended from the sky and blocked in front of Yang Kai and Hu Mei. He cupped his fist and said, "Miss." Grandpa Long, Hu Mei affectionately called out and pulled Yang Kai to introduce him. "This is our gang's vice leader, Grandpa Long Zai Tian." Yang Kai hurriedly saluted, "Greetings, Senior Long." Long Zai Tian looked at Yang Kai with contempt and didn't pay attention to him. With his immortal ascension boundary strength and blood group's vice leader's position, why would he need to pay attention to Yang Kai, this small trash? Another gigolo who lived off a woman. Long Zai Tian especially despised people like Yang Kai. If it weren't for Hu Mei's face, he would have directly slapped Yang Kai to death. "Miss, what are you doing in the mine?" Long Zai Tian stroked his white beard and asked kindly, "This place is dirty and hot, it's not a place you can come. Quickly go back, or else your father will scold me." "No, father, I don't dare to scold you. You are a senior member of the gang for 3 generations, father will only respect you." Hu Mei acted like a spoiled child. Long Zai Tian's face immediately showed an expression of enjoyment. "Grandpa Long, my friend came to the mine to find a few disciples to buy some things. Can you give us some convenience and let us in?" Hu Mei said. To be continued. Chapter 60. Enter the mine. Long Zai Tian's face instantly fell as he vigilantly sized up Yang Kai and said, "He's not a disciple of the faction, right?" Yang Kai stepped forward and respectfully said, "I am a disciple of Sky Tower Pavilion. It's not that the faction's disciples aren't allowed to enter." Long Zai Tian angrily glared at him and said with disdain, "Even the faction's disciples can't casually enter the mine, let alone an outsider like you." After he finished speaking, he bitterly turned his head to look at Hu Meier and said, "Miss, how can you bring an outsider here? You're young and don't know the ways of the world. As the saying goes, it's hard to tell what's in a person's heart. You may know a person's face but not his heart. These past few years, because of this mine, our faction has earned a lot of money. Many people have been eyeing us with jealousy, especially those small fries who are trying to find out information about the mine. If it weren't for this old man overseeing this place all year round, who knows what kind of trouble would occur." Yang Kai's face sank. This old man was pointing at the mulberry and cursing the locust tree. Hu Meier sensed Yang Kai's unhappiness and quickly said, "Grandpa Long, you've misunderstood. He didn't want to find out anything, he just wanted to buy something." Long Zai Tian sneered, "Buy something? How can you buy something here? This excuse is really interesting. Little brat, I don't care what your purpose is, scram for this old man. If you dare to appear here again, this old man won't be able to kill you." Yang Kai's stomach was filled with anger. This old man was too self-righteous. Although he was angry, Yang Kai knew that the difference in strength between them was too big. If they really fought, this old man would probably blow him to death with a single breath. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Yang Kai didn't say anything. If he were to clash with him now, the one who would suffer would be him. Coward! Long Zai Tian looked at Yang Kai and despised him even more. The true Yang Yuan Qi in Yang Kai's body uncontrollably surged as he angrily glared at Long Zai Tian. Sensing the change in the Yuan Qi in Yang Kai's body, Long Zai Tian flew into a rage. "Impudent, you want to fight me?" Then, for no reason at all, disregarding the difference in strength and seniority, he sent a palm strike towards Yang Kai. With this palm strike, Yang Kai found that he suddenly couldn't move. He could only stand there in a daze. This wasn't because he was scared, but because his opponent had used some kind of method to imprison him. Yang Kai's expression greatly changed. He really didn't think that this old guy would actually be so shameless. He could feel Long Zai Tian's attitude towards him, but he couldn't understand why. Now that he suddenly wanted to kill him, Yang Kai was truly shocked to the point that his soul almost left his body. With the aura of death looming over him, the enormous pressure brought about by this immortal Ascension Boundary Master caused Yang Kai's heartbeat to stop at this moment, and his breathing became even more labored. In this desperate situation, a strong will to survive spread throughout his body. Suddenly, a scalding heat spread out from his bones and quickly spread out. In the next moment, Yang Kai found that the power that was imprisoning him suddenly disappeared. In a hurry, Yang Kai used all the strength in his body and fiercely dodged to the side. Long Zai Tian casually sent out a palm strike. He thought that this High Heaven Pavilion disciple would directly die under his palm, but what he didn't expect was that his opponent actually dodged. How is this possible? Long Zai Tian frowned. How could an immortal Ascension Boundary Master's imprisonment be broken by him? Because he didn't think of this point, Long Zai Tian's casual palm strike didn't work. Although Long Zai Tian's attack didn't hit Yang Kai, it still made him extremely embarrassed. His face instantly paled, and his whole body was dripping with sweat. When he stood firm and looked at Long Zai Tian again, Yang Kai's eyes had a cold expression. If it was said that Yang Kai was just angry at Long Zai Tian's attitude towards him before, then now it was a deep hatred. The opponent didn't hide his intention to take his life, as if he wanted to casually pinch an ant to death. Long Zai Tian naturally understood this point. Although he didn't know why his imprisonment just now lost its effect, since he already had the intention to kill Yang Kai, how could he easily stop? In for a penny, in for a pound, he sent out another palm strike. At this time, Hu Mei woke up from her stupor and quickly dodged in front of Yang Kai. Glaring at Long Zai Tian, she hissed, "Grandpa Long, he's my friend. What do you want to do? Those who attempt to inquire about the mining area will be killed without exception. This is the sect leader's order." Long Zai Tian deeply looked at Hu Mei, a trace of astonishment flashing through his eyes. In the past, Hu Mei had also frequently interacted with young men, but he had never seen her so desperately protect anyone. Towards the life or death of those young men, Hu Mei never cared. In other words, 8 out of 10 men who were provoked by her didn't have a good ending. But this time, she bravely stood in front of this High Heaven Pavilion disciple, and even used a fierce tone to question him. This was something that had never happened before. Long Zai Tian's eyes narrowed, as if he was deep in thought, his killing intent becoming even stronger. Hu Mei blocked Yang Kai behind her, gnashing her teeth as she glared at Long Zai Tian, saying, "I already said, my friend only came to buy some things, not to inquire about the mining area. Grandpa Long, do you not believe my words?" Seeing Hu Mei protect Yang Kai so strongly, Long Zai Tian couldn't continue to pester her endlessly, and could only say, "I don't dare." Young Miss words, this old man still believes them. Since that's the case, why do you still want to do this? This old man knows his wrongs, and hopes young Miss will forgive him. Blood Group was different from Stormhouse and High Heaven Pavilion. This was a family power, and the Hu family was the master, so even if Long Zai Tian was the vice leader, he still had to give Hu Mei some face. But this old man still asks young Miss to forgive him. The mining area is a big matter, outsiders are not allowed to enter. After Long Zai Tian finished speaking, he no longer paid attention to Hu Mei, looked at Yang Kai, and coldly snorted before turning to leave. Yang Kai took a deep breath, and calmed the boiling blood in his chest, saying, "Old sir, please wait." Long Zai Tian impatiently turned his head, narrowing his eyes as he looked at Yang Kai, his eyes filled with killing intent. "Old sir, the current me, is not your opponent." Yang Kai slowly walked in front of Hu Mei, looking at Long Zai Tian without fear, "So today's humiliation, I will bear it. But 5 years later, 10 years later, I will return this debt. I hope old sir can live until then." Yang Kai said very calmly, but very seriously. Long Zai Tian's expression turned cold, and immediately laughed. "Whether or not this old man can live until then, you don't need to worry, but I think, you are destined to not live until then. Arrogant brat, be careful in the future." "I will." Long Zai Tian left, and Hu Mei looked at Yang Kai apologetically, repeatedly apologizing. I'm sorry, I didn't know why Grandpa Long was like this. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have brought you here." "It's fine." Taking a deep breath, Kai Yang recalled the thrilling scene from a moment ago. He still had some lingering fear in his heart. If it wasn't for the unyielding golden skeleton at that critical moment, he feared that he would have already died. It was because of that boiling heat that he was able to break free from Long Zai Tian's imprisonment and escape death. Chapter 61. Why would Long Zai Tian target him? Yang Kai glanced at Hu Mei, whose eyes were full of regret and guilt. His heart faintly understood. Some things were not necessary to ask. Hu Mei was also an intelligent and quick-witted girl. Although Kai Yang had only glanced at her once, she was able to understand what he meant. Grandpa Long did not allow you to enter the mine. I also did not want to give him face. How about this, I will help you buy those seeds. You wait for me here for a while. Hu Mei said softly. Okay. Kai Yang knew that this was the only thing he could do, so he took out all of his valuables and told Hu Mei the names of the blood group disciples who had picked up the seedlings. He had already inquired about this matter from the stall owner in Black Wind Trade. Hu Mei entered the underground mine. Yang Kai's eyes swept the several rooms above ground. Long Zai Tian had entered one of the rooms. He could feel that there was a pair of eyes staring at him. Inside the room, an old man and a young man were standing by the window looking at Yang Kai's direction. The old man was Long Zai Tian, who had just attacked Yang Kai. The young man was about the same age as Yang Kai. He was Long Zai Tian's grandson, Long Hui. Long Hui coldly looked at Yang Kai. He said with some dissatisfaction, "Grandpa, why didn't you kill him?" Long Zai Tian coldly snorted, "Mei is protecting him. How do you want me to kill him? That's even more reason to kill him. I have never seen Sister Mei so attentive to a man. This brat and Mei's relationship is not bad. Leaving him alive is definitely a disaster. And I have never seen Mei protect anyone like this before. This time, for him, she even contradicted me. This is not normal." Long Zai Tian frowned. Long Hui was extremely jealous. Mei is now in the mine. "Grandpa, do you want to make a move again?" Long Zai Tian looked at Long Hui with some resentment. "Grandpa, making a move is not a problem. Killing him is also easy. But if because of his death, Mei will have resentment towards you, do you think it is worth it?" Long Hui was startled and shook his head. "It is not worth it. But do you want to let him and Mei develop like this? I cannot stand it." "You." Long Zai Tian couldn't help but sigh. "Learn more from your big brother, see how he deals with the woman he likes. If you want Mei, you have to put in more effort. Grandfather can help you kill people, but I can't help you obtain a woman's heart, right? Hu Man has never had a son in his life, he only has Jiao and Mei, these two daughters. If you and your elder brother can capture both of them, then in the future, the blood group will belong to my Long family. My Long family's 3 generations have worked hard for the blood group for decades, it's time to taste the taste of being a master." Hearing this, Long Hui felt his blood boil. He nodded and said, "It's my Long family's turn to be the master. Rest assured, grandfather, Mei will not be able to escape. Big brother will definitely be able to capture Hu Jiao. And, it's good that you have this ambition." Long Zai Tian smiled and nodded. Long Hui bitterly looked at Yang Kai in the distance, still somewhat restless. "Grandpa, then this person, find your own chance. He's not that strong, you can handle him." "Yes." Long Hui smiled coldly. He couldn't make a move now. After all, Hu Mei would come out later, but since he was a disciple of the Sky Tower Pavilion, he couldn't escape. Yang Kai waited outside for a while before Hu Mei came out dripping with fragrant sweat. With a smile on her face, she stuffed 4 seeds into Yang Kai's hand. "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Since the blood group's miss wanted to buy something, how could the disciples dare not sell it?" "Thank you." Yang Kai carefully put the 4 seeds into his bosom. Standing in the same place for a long time, Yang Kai struggled to say, "You helped me once, I'll return the favor." Hu Mei looked at him strangely. "What do you mean?" Yang Kai waved his hand. "You follow me." Although Hu Mei didn't know what he wanted to do, she still obediently followed him. After walking for about 300 feet, Yang Kai suddenly stopped and lightly stamped his foot. "Remember where I am standing now. About 70 feet underground, there should be some unusual things." Hu Mei's eyes widened, puzzled. "How do you know?" Yang Kai muttered, "I practice a type of martial skill. As long as there is Yang attribute energy within a certain range, I can feel it. There is a young attribute treasure here. The energy it emits is thousands of times purer than the young inflammation stone. When he had first arrived here, Kai Yang had felt that this place was different from other places, but after considering it for a long time, he still decided to tell Hu Mei this news. Firstly, this was the blood group's territory, so even if he coveted it, he wouldn't be able to obtain it. Secondly, he really did want to repay Hu Mei's favor. Today, when she had helped him, Kai Yang had seen it all. Ah! Hearing Yang Kai's words, Hu Mei was startled. Do you believe me? I believe. Hu Mei answered very straightforwardly. This made Yang Kai feel a little moved. Then it's fine. Yang Kai smiled. Although I don't know what is below, this thing's value is definitely not low. Besides this, there seems to be something else, but I can't feel what it is. But I reckon that the secret hidden below is the root of the blood group's mining area, or it could be said that because of its existence, there is an underground mine here. Hu Mei couldn't help but be moved. If what Yang Kai said was true, then the secret below was absolutely important. You are a smart girl, you should know what to do. Yang Kai solemnly said. I understand. Hu Mei nodded repeatedly. Well, let's go. Yang Kai said with a smile. Walking in the dense forest, Hu Mei and Yang Kai didn't speak again, only enjoying this moment of tranquility. Hu Mei was very happy. Because Yang Kai told her such important information, it was clear that his impression of her had greatly changed. She still remembered that last time, he didn't give her any face, ordering her around. But this time was different, he was much gentler to her. Let's part here. Yang Kai suddenly stopped his footsteps, causing Hu Mei to stare blankly. Unknowingly, the two of them had already arrived at the fork in the road. Time passed so quickly. Hu Mei was somewhat resentful. Goodbye. Yang Kai said and hurriedly walked towards High Heaven Pavilion. What a free and easy man. Hu Mei smiled bitterly. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.